Cetasikas by Nina van Gorkum. Preface. This book deals with the operations of the mind, CITTA, and its accompanying mental factors, Cetasikas. A detailed study of the many types of Cetasikas will help the reader to know his own defilements and to develop good qualities and eventually, to eradicate all defilements. Defilements and good qualities are different types of Cetasika. In this study I refer to my book Abhidhamma in Daily Life, which deals with the basic points of the Abhidhamma. It is useful to read this book first in order to understand my study on Cetasikas. The reader may wonder what the purpose is of the many Pali terms used in this book. In the course of his study he will see that the Pali terms are helpful for precision of understanding. I have used the Pali terms next to their English equivalents, but the English terms often have a specific meaning in the context of Western psychology or philosophy. We should try to understand the correct meaning rendered by the Pali terms. Preface. This book deals with the operations of the mind, CITTA, and its accompanying mental factors, Cetasikas. A detailed study of the many types of Cetasikas will help the reader to know his own defilements and to develop good qualities and eventually, to eradicate all defilements. Defilements and good qualities are different types of Cetasika. In this study I refer to my book Abhidhamma in Daily Life, which deals with the basic points of the Abhidhamma. It is useful to read this book first in order to understand my study on Cetasikas. The reader may wonder what the purpose is of the many Pali terms used in this book. In the course of his study he will see that the Pali terms are helpful for precision of understanding. I have used the Pali terms next to their English equivalents, but the English terms often have a specific meaning in the context of Western psychology or philosophy. We should try to understand the correct meaning rendered by the Pali terms. In this study on Cetasikas I have quoted from the first book of the Abhidhamma, the Dhammasangan. I. Buddhist Psychological Ethics. I also used Buddhaghosa's commentary to this book, the Athesa Lin I, in English, the expositor, and his Encyclopedia on Buddhism, the Visuddhimagga, in English, the Path of Purification. Buddhaghosa's commentaries date from the 5th century AD. He edited in Sri Lanka old commentary works with utmost conscientiousness and translated them from Sinhalese into Pali. The reader will be impressed by the discriminative, refined knowledge of all the details of the Buddha's teachings and by the vivid way he illustrates points of the teachings with examples. He continuously points to the goal, the development of insight in order to see realities as they are. I quoted from the Sutta's texts which deal with the development of all kinds of kusala, comprising the development of calm and the development of insight. These texts can encourage us to keep in mind the purpose of our study. Some people believe that the Abhidhamma, the teaching on ultimate realities, is not the original teaching of the Buddha. The Buddhist scriptures, the Tipitaka, consist of the Vinaya, Book of Discipline for the monks, the Siddhanta, Discourses, and the Abhidhamma. The Abhidhamma enumerates all realities and the different conditions for the phenomena which arise. In order to show that the different parts of the scriptures are one, that they are the Buddha's teaching, I quoted also from the Sutta's texts which deal with ultimate realities. There is also Abhidhamma in the Suttas. In the Suttas we read time and again that the Buddha spoke about ultimate realities appearing through the senses and through the mind door. In order to understand the Suttas, some basic knowledge of the Abhidhamma is indispensable. As we study the Abhidhamma we will become more convinced that the Abhidhamma pertains to our daily life, that it teaches about the phenomena we can experience at this moment. As we continue with the study of the Abhidhamma we will be impressed by the depth of its teaching. No ordinary person could conceive such a detailed exposition of everything which is real, except an enlightened one. The reader may find this book technical. But as he proceeds he will find that a detailed study of realities helps him to understand his daily life. I wish to express my deepest thankfulness to Ms. Sujin Boriharnwanaked in Bangkok, who greatly assisted me in understanding the Dhamma and its application in daily life. I based my study of Cetasikas on the lectures she held in the Sakit Temple in Bangkok. I also wish to express my appreciation to the Dhamma Study and Propagation Foundation and to the publisher Alan Weller. With their help the publication of this book was possible. All the texts from which I quoted have been printed by the P. Ali Text Society 1. I will now continue with a general introduction in order to help the reader to have more understanding of the nature of the Cetasikas which accompany the different types of cittas. 1. Introduction: not to do evil, to cultivate good, to purify one's mind. This is the teaching of the Buddhas, Dhammapada, verses 183, the mind cannot be purified if we do not thoroughly investigate it. When we try to analyze the mind it seems to escape us, we cannot grasp it. The mind is very able, it changes very rapidly. At one moment there is a mind with attachment, at another moment a mind with generosity, at another moment a mind with anger. At each moment there is a different mind. Through the Buddhist teachings we learn that in reality the mind is different from what we mean by the word mind in conventional language. What we call mind are in reality different fleeting moments of consciousness succeeding one another very rapidly. Since mind has in Saikal Bogei a meaning different from mind according to the Buddhist teaching, it is to be preferred to use the Pali term citta, pronounced chit. Pali is the language of the Buddhist scriptures of the Theravada tradition. Citta is derived from the Pali word for thinking, sinteti. All cittas have in common that they think of an object, but we have to take thinking here in a very general sense, meaning, being conscious of an object, or cognizing an object. The Buddha's teachings explain in a very precise way the objects which, each through the appropriate doorway, can be cognized by citta. For example, color or visible object can be known through the eye door. Sound through the ear door. Through each of the senses the corresponding object can be known. Through the mind door all kinds of objects, also concepts and ideas, can be known. Before we studied the Buddhist teachings we had a vague, general idea of a thinking mind and we did not have a precise knowledge of objects which are cognized each through their appropriate doorway. Citta is varied because of the different kinds of objects it experiences. Seeing is totally different from hearing. Citta is varied because of the different mental factors or adjuncts which accompany it in various combinations. The Pali term cetasika, pronounced cetasika, is to be preferred to the English translations of this term which vary in different textbooks. Cetasika means literally, belonging to the mind, ceto. There are 52 different Cetasikas which each have their own characteristic and function. Later on I will explain the rationale of these Cetasikas and their classification. There is only one citta at a time, cognizing one object, and each citta is accompanied by several Cetasikas which also experience the same object, but which each perform their own function while they assist the citta in cognizing that object. They arise and fall away together with the citta. Citta and cetasika are mental phenomena, NAMA, which are real in the ultimate sense. Ultimate realities or Paramatha Dhammas have each their own characteristic, their own function, they are true for everybody. There are 4 Paramatha Dhammas, citta, cetasika, rupa, nibbana, citta, cetasikandruparazan kh aradamas, conditioned dhammas. They do not arise by themselves, each of them is conditioned by other phenomena. Citta, for example, does not arise by itself, it is conditioned by the accompanying Cetasikas. Nibbana conditioned dhamma, visin ka radhamarasan kadadhama, it does not arise and fall away. Nibbana is the object of the supramundane citta, lokuttara citta, arising at the moment of enlightenment. What we call in convent-tional language a person is in the absolute or ultimate sense only citta, cetasika and rupa. There is no lasting person or self, there are only citta, cetasika and rupa which arise and then fall away immediately. Citta and cetasika are both anamas, realities which can experience something, whereas rupa does not experience anything. Citta and cetasika arise together, but they are different types of paramatha dhammas. In order to explain the difference between citta and cetasika, the commentary to the first book of the Abhidhamma, the Athesa Lin I, uses the simile of the king and his retinue. The king is the chief, the principal, and his retinue are his attendants. Even so are the cittas which arise in our daily life the leaders in cognizing the object, and the cetasikas are the assistants of citta. The cetasikas have to perform their own tasks and operate at each moment of citta. Citta with its accompanying cetasikas arise each moment and then they fall away immediately. The reader may wonder what the use is of knowing the details about citta and cetasikas. Citta and cetasikas are not abstract categories, they are active at this very moment. We could not see, hear, think, act, be angry or have attachment without cetasikas. Seeing, for example, is a citta. It is the citta which cognizes color or visible object. In order to perform its function it needs the assistance of cetasikas, such as contact, which contacts visible object, or one-pointedness, which focuses on the object. It is important to have more understanding of cetasikas. We should know that defilements are cetasikas and that good qualities are cetasikas. They arise in daily life and when they appear we should investigate their characteristics. Otherwise we would not know what is right and what is wrong. We would not know when defilements arise and how deeply rooted they are. If the Buddha had not taught in detail about defilements we would only have a vague idea about them. How could we see the danger of defilements when they are unknown to us? How could we develop what is wholesome if we would not know the characteristics of wholesome cetasikas and the different ways of good deeds? There is a great variety of cetasikas accompanying the different cittas. Akusala cittas are accompanied by cetasikas which are defilements, whereas kusala cittas are accompanied by cetasikas which are good qualities. Apart from defilements and good qualities there are also cetasikas which accompany cittas which are unwholesome, cittas which are wholesome and cittas which are neither wholesome nor unwholesome. Citta and its accompanying cetasikas are closely associated and they condition one another. There is a relationship and interdependence between them. Citta conditions cetasikas. When the citta is wholesome, kusala, all accompanying cetasikas are also kusala, even those kinds of cetasikas which can arise with each type of citta. When the citta is unwholesome, akusala, all the accompanying cetasikas are akusala. Feeling, for example, is a cetasika which accompanies each citta. When there is pleasant feeling, it can accompany kusala citta or akusala citta rooted in attachment, but its quality is different in each case. Cetasikas condition the citta they accompany, and the cetasikas which arise together also condition one another. For example, the cetasika understanding, pan-na, conditions the citta and the other cetasikas it accompanies. When the citta with generosity is accompanied by panna which realizes that generosity is kusala, the degree of kusala is higher than in the case of kusala citta without panna. When there is generosity, there is no person who is generous. Generosity is a cetasika performing its function while it assists the kusala citta. When there is attachment, there is no person who is attached. Attachment is a cetasika performing its function. The cetasikas which accompany the citta experience the same object as the citta while they each perform their own function. At one moment there can be attachment to color which is experienced through the eye door, at another moment there can be attachment to sound which is experienced through the ear door, at another moment there can be attachment to the concept of a person which is an object experienced through the mind door. Citta and its accompanying cetasikas arise and fall away extremely rapidly. When right understanding has not been developed, we cannot distinguish between different objects experienced through the different doorways. We are inclined to join different realities together into a whole, and thus we cannot realize their arising and falling away, their impermanence, and their nature of non-self. Through the study of the Buddhist teachings there can first be more understanding of the true nature of realities on the theoretical level. Only through the development of direct understanding of realities one will know the truth through one's own experience. There is no abiding ego or self who can direct the operations of the mind. There is a different citta all the time, and it is accompanied by different cetasikas. They arise because of their own conditions. We are so used to thinking in terms of a mind belonging to the human person. It is difficult to understand that there is no ego who can direct his mind, who can take his destiny in his own hands and shape it. If everything is beyond control, where is the human dignity? If one walks the Buddha's path, one will know the difference between what is true in the ultimate sense and what is only imagination or a dream. There will be less delusion about the truth, and there will eventually be elimination of all that is impure and unwholesome. This is mental emancipation, and is that not the highest good one could attain? The reader may find it cumbersome to know which types of cetasikas can accompany which types of citta, and to learn the different classifications of the groups of defilements. Such details, however, help us to be able to see the danger of unwholesomeness and the benefit of wholesomeness. When we know with what types of citta the various cetasikas are combined, we will come to understand the underlying motives of our actions, speech and thought. Detailed knowledge will prevent us from taking for kusala what is akusala. In order to help the reader to understand the variety of cetasikas which accompany different cittas, I shall first summarize a few basic points on citta I also dealt with in my Abhidhamma in daily life. Cittas can be classified in many ways, and one of these is the classification by way of jata, literally birth or nature. Cittas can be of the following four jats: akusala, kusala, vipaka, result, kriya, inoperative, neither cause nor result. The cetasikas which accompany citta are of the same jati as the citta they accompany. Some cetasikas accompany cittas of all four jats, others do not. Cittas arise and fall away very rapidly, and we often do not know that a different citta of another jati has arisen after the present citta has fallen away. For example, we may think that the present citta is still vipaka citta, the result of kama, when it is actually a kusala citta with attachment or with aversion on account of the object which is experienced. Seeing, for instance, is vipaka citta. The moment of seeing is extremely short. Shortly after it has fallen away, cittas rooted in attachment, aversion or ignorance may arise, and these are of a different jati. The jati which is a kusala, cittas perform different functions. For example, seeing is a function, kika, of citta. Seeing consciousness which performs the function of seeing arises in a process of cittas. It is preceded and followed by other cittas which perform their own functions. Whenever there are sense impressions, there is not merely one citta, but several cittas arising in a process, and each of these cittas performs its own function. It is the same with cittas arising in a mind door process. As for cittas which do not arise in either sense door process or mind door process, they also have to perform a function. The rebirth consciousness, pat-dharasandhi citta, the life continuum, bhavanga citta, and the dying consciousness, kuti citta, do not arise in a process of citta 1. There are Bhavanga cittas in between the different processes of citta, summarizing the cittas which perform their functions in a sense door process and then in the mind door process too when a rupa impinges on one of the sense doors, at Ida Bhavanga, past Bhavanga, Bhavanga Kalana, vibrating Bhavanga, Bhavangupakita, arrest Bhavanga, the last Bhavanga arising before the object is experienced through the sense door. 5 sense door adverting consciousness, pan kad var avajana citta, sense cognition, dvi pan kavan nn. A. Seeing consciousness, etc., receiving consciousness, sampat dadikana citta, investigating consciousness, santiran. A. Citta, Chapter 1, Introduction 7, Determining Consciousness, Vadhapana citta, 7 Javana cittas, Kusala cittas or Akusala cittas in the case of non-arahats, 2 Registering consciousness, Tad Araman. A. Cittas which may or may not arise, then there are Bhavanga cittas and the last 2 of these, arising before the object is experienced through the mind door, are specifically designated by a name. The process runs as follows. Bhavanga Kalana, vibrating Bhavanga, Bhavangupakita, which is in this case the mind door through which the cittas of the mind door process will experience the object, mind door adverting consciousness, Manodvar Avajana citta, 7 Javana cittas, 2 Tad Araman. A. Cittas, which may or may not arise. After the mind door process has been completed there are Bhavanga cittas again. I think that it is useful for the reader to review the enumeration of cittas I have given above, since I, in the following chapters on Cetasikas, shall refer to cittas performing different functions in processes and to cittas which do not arise in a process. All these cittas are accompanied by different types of Cetasikas. The study of Cetasikas will help us to have more understanding of the intricate operations of the mind, of citta and Cetasikas. It will help us to understand in theory that citta and Cetasikas act according to their own conditions, and that an abiding agent who could direct mental activities is not to be found. The study of the realities as taught by the Buddha can remind us to investigate them when they appear in our daily life. Theoretical understanding of the truth is a foundation for the development of direct understanding of realities as they present themselves one at a time through the 6 doors, through the senses and the mind. Since the aim of the study of the Abhidhamma is the development of right understanding of the realities of our life, I refer in this book time and again to its development. Right understanding of Nama and Rupa is developed by being mindful of them when they appear. Sati, mindfulness or awareness, is a wholesome cetasika which is non-forgetful, aware of the reality which appears at the present moment. 3. At the very moment of sati the reality which appears can be investigated, and in this way right understanding will gradually develop. Eventually Nama and Rupa will be seen as they are, as impermanent and non-self. We should not forget that also awareness, sati, is a cetasika arising because of its own conditions. If we have understood this we shall not force its arising or try to direct it to particular objects, such as this or that cetasika. The study of the Abhidhamma can prevent wrong ideas about the development of the Buddha's path. The realities of our life, including our defilements, should be understood as not self. So long as we take defilements for self or mind they cannot be eradicated. The direct understanding of realities as non-self is the condition for not doing evil, for cultivating the good and for purifying one's mind. In the chapters which follow I shall deal with 52 different types of Cetasikas. I shall first refer to 7 types of Cetasikas which accompany every citta. These are the universals. Then I shall refer to 6 types of Cetasikas which can arise with cittas of 4 jats, cittas which are kusala, akusala, vipaka, and kriya, neither cause nor result, but which do not accompany each citta. These are called the particulars. After that I shall deal with the akusala Cetasikas and finally with the beautiful, sabhana, Cetasikas. Part 1, The Universals, 2 Contact, 2.1 Contact, Phassa. A citta cannot arise alone, it has to be accompanied by Cetasikas. When there is seeing, citta cognizes visible object and the Cetasikas which accompany the citta also experience visible object. The citta is the leader, while the Cetasikas which share the same object perform each their own task. The Cetasikas have each their own characteristic, lakhan, specific or generic attribute, function, rasa, function or achievement, manifestation, pakyupat.t.hana, manifestation, appearance or effect, and proximate cause, padat.t.hana. 1. There are many conditions for the different phenomena which appear, but the proximate cause or immediate occasion is mentioned in particular when the Cetasikas are defined in the commentaries. The Athasalin I, expositor, and the Visadhimagga. There are 7 Cetasikas which have to arise with every citta, they are called the universals, sabasitta, sadhrna. Some cittas are accompanied only by the universals, others are accompanied by several more Cetasikas in addition. Thus, every citta is accompanied by at least the 7 universals. The universals arise with every citta and thus they arise with all the cittas of the 4 jatis, with akusala citta, kusala citta, vipaka and kiryasitta. They arise with all cittas in all planes of existence where there is nama, with the cittas of the woeful planes, in the human being plane, in the deva planes. In the Arupa, Brahma planes, except the asan and asata plane, the plane where there is only Arupa not nama, 2 and in the Arupa Brahma planes. They arise with all cittas of all planes of consciousness, with km of akra cittas, sensuous plane of citta, with rup of akra cittas, plane of rupajh anacittas, arup of akra cittas, plane of arupajh anacittas, and with lokuttara cittas, cittas which experience nibbana. Contact, in Pali, phassa, is mentioned first among the universals. Phassa arises together with every citta, it contacts the object so that citta can experience it. When seeing experiences visible object, phassa which accompanies seeing, consciousness also experiences visible object but it performs its own function. At that moment phassa contacts visible object and conditions seeing consciousness to see. The Athas Alan I, expositor, Part 4, Chapter 1, 108, states about contact. Contact means it touches. It has touching as its salient characteristic, impact as its function, coinciding, of the physical base, object and consciousness, as its manifestation, and the object which has entered the avenue, of awareness, as proximate cause for. The Visadhimagga, Path of Purification 14, 134, gives a similar definition. Phassa is different from what we mean in conventional language by physical contact or touch. When we use the word contact in conventional language we may think of the impingement of something external on one of the senses, for example the impingement of hardness on the body sense. We may use words such as touching or impingement in order to describe phassa, but we should not forget that phassa is nama, a cetasika which arises together with the citta and assists the citta so that it can experience the object which presents itself through the appropriate doorway. When hardness presents itself through the body sense there is phassa. Contact, arising together with the citta which experiences the hardness. Phassa is not the mere collision of hardness with the body sense, it is not touch in the physical sense. Impact is the function of phassa in the sense that it assists the citta so that it can cognize the object. Phassa is manifested by coinciding or concurrence, namely, by the coinciding of 3 factors, physical base, vathu, object and consciousness. When there is seeing, there is the coinciding of I, the eye base, visible object and seeing consciousness, through this concurrence phassa, which is in this case eye contact, is manifested. We read in the Discourse of the Honeyball, middle-length sayings I, number 18, that Ma Akak Anna explained to the monks concerning contact, this situation occurs, that when there is I, your reverences, when there is visible object, when there is visual consciousness, one will recognize the manifestation of sensory impingement, phassa. When there is the concurrence of the ear, sound and hearing consciousness, there is the manifestation of ear contact. When there is the concurrence of body, sense, a tangible object such as hardness and the experience of hardness, there is the manifestation of body contact. Eye contact is different from ear contact and different from body contact. At each moment of citta there is a different phassa which conditions the citta to experience an object. Phassa is not the doorway through which citta experiences an object. In the case of a sense door process the rupa which is one of the senses is doorway, and in the case of a mind door process nama is doorway, namely the last bhavanga citta arising before the mind door adverting consciousness. The first citta of the mind door process. In the planes of existence where there are nama and rupa, cittas have a physical base or place of origin, the vatha 6. The vathu is rupa. In the case of the pan-siavin anandata as, seeing, hearing, etc., the vathas are the pa-ada rupa, the rupa which are capable of receiving visible object, sound, etc. In the case of the pan-siavin anandata as the pa-ada rupa functions as both vathu and doorway, dv era. For example, the rupa which is eye sense, kakupa's ada rupa, is both doorway and vathu for seeing consciousness. Although it is one and the same rupa, the functions of dv era and vathu are different. The dv era is the means through which citta experiences an object, and the vathu is the physical base for the citta. Only for the pan-siavin anandata as are the dv era and the vathu one and the same rupa. For the other cittas of the sense door process the dv era and the vathu are different rupa. They have as their vathu another kind of rupa which is in the commentaries called the heart base, Hidaya Vathu, 7. The cittas which arise in the mind door process also have as their vathu the heart base. The vathu is the physical base not only of citta, but also of the Cetasikas which accompany the citta. When seeing, consciousness arises at the eye base, kakavathu, phassa and the other Cetasikas which accompany seeing consciousness arise also at the eye base. Thus, citta and the accompanying Cetasikas arise together at the same vathu, they share the same object and they fall away together. The different cittas with their accompanying Cetasikas arise when there are the appropriate conditions for their arising. Even when our eyes are open, there is not seeing all the time. There are many different types of cittas which arise one at a time. When there is, for example, hearing or thinking there cannot be seeing at the same time. When there are the appropriate conditions for seeing consciousness, it arises. Then there is the concurrence of the eye, visible object and seeing. Eye contact performs its function so that seeing can experience visible object. Contact supports the citta and the other Cetasikas which accompany the citta. There must be contact arising with the citta in order that it can cognize its object. Contact also supports the other Cetasikas it arises together with. Without contact there could not be feeling, perception, san-na, or volition, satan-a. The Athasalin I, 108, compares phassa with a pillar in a palace which is a strong support to the rest of the structure. In the same way contact is a strong support to the citta and the accompanying Cetasikas. Is there contact now? There is the experience of an object right now and thus there has to be contact as well. There are seeing, hearing or thinking occurring time and again. We think that it is I who sees, hears, or thinks, but in reality there are different cittas conditioned by different factors. Knowing more about the different factors through which realities are conditioned will help us to understand that there is no self who experiences an object. Seeing is anama which arises because of the concurrence of different factors and it cannot stay, it has to fall away again. We cannot force it to arise nor can we force it to stay. When we are busy with our work, there are different realities presenting themselves through the senses, but we are usually forgetful of them. When hardness presents itself, phassa performs its function so that citta can experience the object. There is no self who experiences hardness. Considering realities can condition the arising of mindfulness, no matter whether we walk, stand, sit or lie down. When we study Cetasikas we should not forget that Cetasikas never arise alone, they have to arise together with citta. They arise with the cittas of our daily life, they are not abstract categories. Since citta and Cetasikas which arise together condition one another, the Cetasikas and thus also phassa have different qualities when they arise with different types of citta. Contact supports the citta and the other Cetasikas which accompany the citta. There must be contact arising with the citta in order that it can cognize its object. Contact also supports the other Cetasikas it arises together with. Without contact there could not be feeling, perception, sanna, or volition, satana. The Athasalin I, 108, compares phassa with a pillar in a palace which is a strong support to the rest of the structure. In the same way contact is a strong support to the citta and the accompanying Cetasikas. Is there contact now? There is the experience of an object right now and thus there has to be contact as well. There are seeing, hearing or thinking occurring time and again. We think that it is I who sees, hears or thinks, but in reality there are different cittas conditioned by different factors. Knowing more about the different factors through which realities are conditioned will help us to understand that there is no self who experiences an object. Seeing is anama which arises because of the concurrence of different factors and it cannot stay, it has to fall away again. We cannot force it to arise nor can we force it to stay. When we are busy with our work, there are different realities presenting themselves through the senses, but we are usually forgetful of them. When hardness presents itself, phassa performs its function so that citta can experience the object. There is no self who experiences hardness. Considering realities can condition the arising of mindfulness, no matter whether we walk, stand, sit or lie down. When we study Cetasikas we should not forget that Cetasikas never arise alone, they have to arise together with citta. They arise with the cittas of our daily life, they are not abstract categories. Since citta and Cetasikas which arise together condition one another, the Cetasikas and thus also phassa have different qualities when they arise with different types of citta. The Jivana cittas are, in the case of the non-arahats, either akusala cittas or kusala cittas. Most of the time the Jivana cittas are akusala cittas, since we have accumulated many kinds of defilements akusala cittas are bound to arise. When we, for example, see a pleasant object, we are likely to be attached to it and to have pleasant feeling on account of the object. However, attachment does not arise at the moment of seeing consciousness. Seeing consciousness is vipaka citta which is result, and it is invariably accompanied by indifferent feeling. The phassa which accompanies the seeing consciousness is also vipaka. When we like what we see there are Jivana cittas which are lobamula cittas, cittas rooted in attachment, and these may be accompanied by pleasant feeling or by indifferent feeling. The phassa which accompanies a kusala citta is also a kusala. The phassas which accompany different kinds of citta are different and the feelings which accompany the cittas are different as well. The following sutta in the Kindred Sayings, 4, Sao. Ayatana Vagga, Kindred Sayings on Sense, 3rd 50, Chapter 3, Par 129, Gazeta, deals with realities as elements, and it is explained that different phenomena which arise have different conditions. The sutta does not mention each moment of citta in the process of cittas. It is understood that the pleasant feeling and unpleasant feeling referred to do not arise at the moment of seeing consciousness, but later on in the process. We read. Once the Venerable Ananda was staying at Kozamai in Gazeta Park. Then the house father Gazeta came to see the Venerable Ananda. Seated at one side he said this to the Venerable Ananda. Diversity in elements. Diversity in elements is the saying, my Lord Ananda. Pray, sir, how far has diversity in elements been spoken of by the Exalted One, when the elements of I and objects that are pleasing in I, consciousness occur together, Housefather, owing to the pleasurable contact there arises pleasant feeling. When the elements of I, objects that are displeasing in I consciousness occur together, owing to the unpleasant contact resulting there arises painful feeling. When the elements of I, objects that are of indifferent effect and I consciousness occur together, owing to neutral contact resulting, there arises feeling that is neutral, so when the elements of ear, nose, tongue, body, when the elements of mind and objects that are pleasurable in mind consciousness occur together, when mind and objects that are displeasing, or mind and objects that are of indifferent effect occur together, owing to the contact resulting, whether it be pleasing, displeasing or neutral, there arises feeling that is pleasing, displeasing or neutral. So when the elements of ear, nose, tongue, body, when the elements of mind and objects that are pleasurable and mind consciousness occur together, when mind and objects that are displeasing, or mind and objects that are of indifferent effect occur together, owing to the contact resulting. Whether it be pleasing, displeasing or neutral, there arises feeling that is pleasing, displeasing or neutral. Thus far, Housefather, diversity in elements has been spoken of by the Exalted One. When we read this sutta we can be reminded to see phenomena as elements which arise dependent on conditions. Sometimes the object which phassa contacts is pleasant, sometimes unpleasant, this is beyond control. Because of our defilements, attachment, aversion and ignorance arise time and again. If we learn to see the events of our life as conditioned elements, right understanding will develop. We have different contacts through the eyes and through the ears. When we are at the opera, we may dislike the sight of someone who is singing, but we may like the sound. There are different objects and different contacts, there can be like and dislike at different moments. In reality there is no singer nor is there a person who can look at him and listen to his singing at the same time. There are only different elements, amas and rupa, which each have their appropriate conditions for their arising and can only be experienced one at a time. The citta and the accompanying Cetasikas which experience visible object arise at one moment, the citta and the accompanying Cetasikas which experience sound arise at another moment. In another process of cittas, the dislike of visible object cannot arise at the same time as the attachment to the sound, they arise in different processes of cittas. Cittas succeed one another very rapidly and at each moment there is a different contact accompanying the citta. Because of ignorance we do not know the reality which is experienced at the present moment. We do not know whether it is sound, visible object or a concept. We think that all these realities can appear at the same time. We think most of the time of concepts instead of being aware of realities as they appear one at a time. The study of phassa cetasika can remind us that at each moment a different citta arises, dependent on different conditions. When there is seeing, phassa cannot contact any other object but visible object. Seeing can experience only visible object, it cannot experience a person in the visible object. When there is hearing, phassa cannot contact any other object but sound. Hearing cannot experience a person in the sound. When there is thinking of a concept, there is a different citta with a different phassa which contacts the object citta is thinking of. There cannot be more than one contact at a time. A detailed knowledge of different cittas and their accompanying cetasikas will help us to understand the realities of our daily life as they appear one at a time. It is important to have more understanding of realities such as seeing or hearing. They are cittas arising time and again in daily life. They experience pleasant or unpleasant objects, and on account of these objects kusala cittas or akusala cittas arise, but mostly akusala cittas. Through the Abhidhamma we acquire a more precise knowledge of realities, but the knowledge should not stay at the level of theory. When we study the Abhidhamma we can be reminded to be aware of whatever reality appears at the present moment, and in this way the study will lead us to realize fully the aim of the Buddha's teachings, right understanding of realities. 2.1.1 Questions. 1. How can we prove that there is contact? 2. Through how many doors is there phassa? 3. Is phassa nama or rupa? 4. What is the difference between eye contact and the eye door? 5. Are manosam phassa, mind contact, and the mind door different from each other? 6. Why is there not eye contact every moment our eyes are open? 7. What kind of object does phassa contact and there is bhavangasiddha? 8. When a loud noise hurts our ears, through which doorway is it felt? What kind of object is experienced at that moment? Can other realities apart from sound be experienced through the ear sense? 9. Why is it useful to know that phassa contacts only one object? 10. Is a concept an object that phassa can contact? 11. Why must there be phassa with every citta? Chapter 3, Feeling, in Pali Vedana is another cetasika among the 7 universals. Feeling accompanies every citta. There is no moment without feeling. We may think that we all know what feeling is, and we believe that it is easy to recognize pleasant feeling and unpleasant feeling. However, do we really know the characteristic of feeling when it appears, or do we merely think of a concept of feeling? Throughout our life we have seen ourselves as a whole of mind and body. Also when we consider our feelings we think of this whole, which we take for self. When someone asks us, "How do you feel?" and we answer, for example, "I am happy," we do not know the characteristic of happy feeling, which is a mental phenomenon, anama. We cling to the whole of mind and body. Thus we only know concepts, not realities. Is there feeling now? We think that we can recognize pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling, but are we not mixing up feeling with bodily phenomena? Feeling is nama, quite different from rupa. So long as we do not distinguish nama from rupa we cannot know the characteristic of feeling as it is. When we study the Abhidhamma we learn that Vedana is not the same as what we mean by feeling in conventional language. Feeling is nama, it experiences something. Feeling never arises alone, it accompanies citta and other cetasikas and it is conditioned by them. Thus, feeling is a conditioned nama. Citta does not feel, it cognizes the object and Vedana feels. Feeling accompanies all cittas of the 4 jats, akusala citta, kusala citta, vipaka citta and kirya citta. Feeling is of the same jati as the citta it accompanies. The feeling which accompanies, for example, akusala citta is also akusala and entirely different from the feeling which accompanies vipaka citta. Since there are many different types of citta there is a great variety of feeling. Although there are many kinds of feeling, they have one characteristic in common, they all are the Paramatha Dhamma, non-self, which feels. All feelings have the function of experiencing the taste, the flavor of an object. Thesalin I, Part 4, Chapter 1, 109. The Thesalin I uses a simile in order to illustrate that feeling experiences the taste of an object and that citta and the other Cetasikas which arise together with feeling experience the taste only partially. A cook who has prepared a meal for the king merely tests the food and then offers it to the king who enjoys the taste of it, and the king, being lord, expert, and master, eats whatever he likes. Even so, the mere testing of the food by the cook is like the partial enjoyment of the object by the remaining Dhammas, the citta and the other Cetasikas, and as the cook tests a portion of the food, so the remaining Dhammas enjoy a portion of the object, and as the king, being lord, expert, and master, eats the meal according to his pleasure, so feeling, being lord, expert and master, enjoys the taste of the object, and therefore it is said that enjoyment or experience is its function. Thus, all feelings have in common that they experience the taste of an object. Citta and the other accompanying Cetasikas also experience the object, but feeling experiences it in its own characteristic way. Feelings are manifold and they can be classified in different ways. When they are classified as three feelings, they are pleasant feeling, sukha, unpleasant feeling, dukkha, indifferent, or neutral feeling, adukkhamasukha, neither painful nor pleasant. There is no moment without feeling. When there is not pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling, there is indifferent feeling. It is difficult to know what indifferent feeling is. So long as we cannot distinguish an ama from rupa, we cannot know precisely the characteristic of feeling, and thus we cannot know indifferent feeling either. When mental feelings and bodily feelings are taken into account, feelings can be classified as fivefold: pleasant bodily feeling, sukha; painful bodily feeling, dukkha; happy feeling, somanassa; unhappy feeling, dhammanassa; indifferent feeling, upekkha. Pleasant bodily feeling and painful bodily feeling are anamas. We can call them bodily feeling because they are conditioned by impact on the body sense. When, for example, temperature which is just the right amount of heat or cold impinges on the body sense, the body consciousness, K-I-N-N.A, which experiences it is accompanied by pleasant bodily feeling. Body consciousness is vipakasitta, and in this case kusala vipakasitta 1. The pleasant bodily feeling which accompanies this kusala vipakasitta is also kusala vipaka. Pleasant bodily feeling cannot accompany any other kind of citta but the body consciousness, K-I-N-N.A, which is kusala vipaka. Thus we see that not every kind of feeling can arise with all types of citta. Painful bodily feeling accompanies only the K-I-N-N, which is a kusala vipaka. When, for example, temperature which is too hot or too cold impinges on the body sense, K-I-N-N, which is a kusala vipakasitta, experiences this unpleasant object. This akusala vipakasitta is accompanied by painful bodily feeling. Painful bodily feeling cannot accompany any other kind of citta but the K-I-N-N, which is akusala vipaka. Bodily feelings arise because of impingement of a pleasant or unpleasant object on the body sense. The K-I-N-N cognizes the pleasant or unpleasant object which impinges on the body sense, phassa, contacts the object, and experiences the taste of the object. The feeling which accompanies K-I-N-N is either pleasant feeling or painful feeling. It cannot be indifferent feeling. In the case of the other pan-Ca-N-N, as two which are seeing, hearing, smelling and tasting, the AC accompanying feeling is always indifferent feeling, no matter whether the vipakasitta which experiences the object is kusala vipakasitta or akusala vipakasitta. The Paramatha man Ju sa, a commentary to the Visuddhimagga, 14, note 56, explains why K-I-N and Datta is accompanied by either pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling. This is because of the violence of the impact's blow. There is the direct impact of tangible object on the body sense. Tangible objects which are experienced through the rupa, which is the body sense, are the following: rupa, solidity, appear, ing as hardness or softness, temperature, appearing as heat or cold, and motion, appearing as oscillation or pressure. By way of a simile, the difference is explained between the impact of tangible object on the body sense and the impact of the other sense objects on the relevant senses. When a man places cotton wool on an anvil and strikes it with an iron hammer, the hammer goes right through the cotton wool because of the violence of the impact. In the case, however, of the other pan ca, vin and datas, the impact is gentle, like the contact between two pieces of cotton wool. Thus, they are accompanied by indifferent feeling. The impact of visible object on the eye sense is gentle when compared with the direct physical contact of tangible object with the body sense. We may believe that bodily feeling can be indifferent, but this is not so. The moment of body consciousness, K-I-N-N-Data, is extremely short. It is only one moment of vipaka, and after it has fallen away akusala cittas or kusala cittas arise. Body consciousness is accompanied either by pleasant bodily feeling or by painful bodily feeling. The akusala cittas or kusala cittas which arise shortly afterwards are accompanied by feelings which are different from bodily feeling. They can be accompanied by happy feeling. Unhappy feeling or indifferent feeling, somanassa, happy feeling, can arise with cittas of all four jats, with kusala citta, akusala citta, vipaka citta, and kriya citta. Somanassa is of the same jati as the citta it accompanies. It does not arise with every citta. Somanassa cannot accompany dosamula citta, which has aver, shown towards an object, and it cannot accompany mohamula citta, citta rooted in ignorance. Somanassa can accompany lobamula citta, but it does not always accompany lobamula citta. Lobamula citta can be accompanied by somanassa or by upeka, indifferent feeling. When somanassa accompanies lobamula citta, somanassa is also akusala. There can be pleasant feeling when one likes a pleasant visible object, a beautiful sound, a fragrant odor, a delicious taste, a soft touch, or an agreeable thought. We would like to have pleasant feeling all the time. It often seems to be the goal of our life. However, pleasant feeling cannot last, and when it is gone we are sad. We find it very important what kind of feeling we have, but feelings are beyond control, they arise because of conditions. Lobha accompanied by somanassa is more intense than lobha accompanied by upeka. Lobamula citta accompanied by somanassa arises when there are the appropriate conditions. There is no self who can prevent this. If we study the different types of feeling and the cittas they accompany, it will help us to recognize akusala cittas. If we would not know that somanassa may accompany lobamula citta, we would think that it is good to have happy feeling. One may see the disadvantage of unhappy feeling, but does one recognize the disadvantage of all kinds of akusala, also when they are accompanied by somanassa? Somanassa does not stay. When we do not get the pleasant objects, we are longing for our attachment conditions aversion, which is always accompanied by unhappy feeling. If we realize the danger of all kinds of akusala, it can remind us to be aware of the reality which appears. This is the way leading to the eradication of akusala. Somanassa can accompany kusala citta, but it does not accompany each kusala citta. When we perform dhyana, generosity, observe sila, morality, or apply ourselves to mental development, there can be somanassa or upeka, indifferent feeling, with the kusala citta. We would like to have kusala citta with somanassa, but for the arising of somanassa there have to be the right conditions. One of these is strong confidence in the benefit of kusala. Confidence, sada, is a wholesome cetasika which accompanies each kusala citta, but there are many degrees of confidence. When one has strong confidence in kusala, one will perform it with joy. We read in the Athasalin I. Part 2, Chapter 1, 75, that abundance of confidence, sada, purity of views, seeing advantage in kusala, should be understood as factors of this consciousness in making it accompanied by joy. When someone has right view of realities, right view of kusala and akusala, of kama and its result, he will be firmly convinced of the benefit of kusala, and this is a condition to perform it with somanassa. The pleasant feeling which accompanies kusala citta is quite different from the pleasant feeling which accompanies lobhamula citta. When we give a present to someone else and there is pleasant feeling, we may think that there is one kind of feeling which lasts, but in reality there are different moments of feeling akampa, 9 different cittas. There can be a moment of pure generosity accompanied by pleasant feeling, but there are bound to be many moments of attachment after the kusala cittas have fallen away. We may be attached to the person we give to or to the thing we give, or we may expect something in return. We want to be liked by the person who receives our gift. Dosamula citta can arise only in the sensuous planes of existence. It cannot arise in the higher planes of existence where those who cultivate jhana can be reborn. In the sensuous planes there is clinging to the sense objects, and this conditions dosa. When one does not obtain pleasant sense objects, dosa is likely to arise. Those who have cultivated Rupajayana and Arupajayana 3 have suppressed attachment to sense objects. They can be reborn in higher planes of existence, in Arupabrahma planes and in Arupabrahma planes, and in these planes there are no conditions for dosa. However, when they are reborn in sensuous planes where there are conditions for dosa, dosamula cittas accompanied by dhammanassa arise again so long as they have not been eradicated. We dislike dhammanassa and we would like to get rid of it, but we should understand that dosa can only be eradicated by the development of the wisdom which sees realities as they are. There is no other way. Only the Aryan, the noble person, who has attained the third stage of enlightenment, which is the stage of the nagmi, non-returner, has eradicated clinging to sense objects, and thus he has no more conditions for dosa. The nagmi and the arahat have eradicated dosa, and thus they never have any more unpleasant feeling. Dosa and dhammanassa always arise together. It is difficult to distinguish between these two realities, but they are different cetasikas. Dhammanassa is feeling. It experiences the taste of the undesirable object. Dosa is not feeling, it has a different characteristic. Dosa does not like the object which is experienced. There are many degrees of dosa, it can be a slight aversion, anger, or hate. But in any case dosa does not want the object and dhammanassa feels unhappy. We know so little about the different realities which arise. We may have a backache. Is it painful bodily feeling which appears, or is it the characteristic of dhammanassa which accompanies dosamula citta? Upeka, indifferent feeling, is different from somanassa and from dhammanassa. It is neither happy nor unhappy. Upeka can arise with cittas of all 4 jhats, but it does not arise with every citta. When there is no awareness, many moments of feeling pass unnoticed. There is feeling with every citta, and when we do not notice any feeling there is still feeling. At such moments there is indifferent feeling. We may not feel either glad or unhappy while we are busy with our work or while we are thinking. Then there is indifferent feeling. Indifferent feeling accompanies vipaka such as seeing or hearing. It can accompany lobhamula citta. This type of citta can be accompanied either by pleasant feeling or by indifferent feeling. Do we notice clinging which is accompanied by upekkha? When we walk or when we get hold of different things we use in our daily life, such as a pen or a book, there is bound to be clinging even when we do not feel particularly glad. We cling to life and we want to go on living and receiving sense impressions. We are attached to sense impressions such as seeing and hearing. There are many moments of seeing and hearing, and shortly after they have fallen away there are bound to be lobha, mula cittas even when we do not have happy feeling. After seeing has fallen away there is a mind door process of cittas which experience visible object through the mind door, and then there can be other mind door processes of cittas which think of concepts. We may think of a person, a car, or a tree. We like to notice a person, a car, or a tree. These are concepts we are familiar with. We like to think, and even when we do not feel glad there can be clinging with indifferent feeling, but we do not notice this. It is useful to know that lobha can be accompanied by upekkha. Through the abhidhamma we can come to know our many defilements. It is better to know realities than to mislead ourselves with regard to them. When hardness impinges on the body sense, the enan cognizes the hardness and the accompanying feeling experiences the taste of the hardness. Time and again vipakkha arise which experience pleasant or unpleasant objects through the body sense. There are hardness or softness, heat or cold impinging on the body sense, no matter whether we are walking, standing, sitting or lying down. There is the experience of hardness or softness time and again when we touch things or take hold of them, but we are so absorbed in what we want to get or want to do that we are unaware of the different experiences through the senses. The feeling which is vipakkha is different from feeling which is associated with attachment or aversion. Pleasant bodily feeling which is vipakkha is not associated with attachment, and painful bodily feeling is not associated with aversion. At the moment of pleasant bodily feeling there is no attachment to the object, pleasant bodily feeling merely experiences the pleasant object. At the moment of painful bodily feeling there is no dislike of the object, painful bodily feeling merely experiences the unpleasant object. After the vipakkha which experience pleasant or unpleasant objects have fallen away, akusala cittas which are rooted in lobha, attachment, dosa, aversion, or moha, ignorance, are bound to arise. Akusala cittas arise very often, because we have accumulated many defilements. On the other hand, when there are conditions for wise attention to the object, kusala cittas arise instead of akusala cittas. There may be, for example, after the experience of tangible object, mindfulness of nama or rupa. We have considered the characteristics of pleasant bodily feeling, painful bodily feeling, happy feeling, somanassa, unhappy feeling, dhammanassa, and indifferent feeling, upekkha, 5. Although all of them are the cetasika which is feeling, vedana, they are different kinds of feeling with different characteristics. At every moment feeling is different, because at every moment there is a different citta. For example, upekkha, indifferent feeling, which accompanies vipakkha citta is different from upekkha which accompanies akusala citta or upekkha which accompanies kusala citta. Upekkha which accompanies the jhana citta of the fifth stage is different again. All these feelings are upekkha. But they are conditioned by different cittas and accompanying cetasikas. Since there is such a variety of feelings, it is useful to know more classifications of feeling. Feelings can be classified by way of contact through the 6 doors of the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body sense and mind. Cittas experience objects through 6 doors, and through these doors pleasant and unpleasant objects are experienced. On account of a pleasant object there is often lobha mula citta which can be accompanied by somanassa or upekkha, and on account of an unpleasant object there is often dosamulasita which is accompanied by dhammanasa. If we understand that the experience of pleasant and unpleasant objects and the different feelings which arise on account of them are conditioned, we will attach less importance to the kind of feeling which arises at a particular moment. The experience of pleasant or unpleasant objects through the senses is vipaka conditioned by kama, and the kusala sittas or akusala sittas arising on account of the objects which are experienced are conditioned by our accumulated tendencies. There is no self who can exercise power over any reality which arises, there are only nama and rupa which arise because of conditions. Sometimes there are kindi. Tyans for indifferent feeling, sometimes for pleasant feeling, sometimes for unpleasant feeling. 6. Sittas arise and fall away very rapidly, succeeding one another, there never is a moment without citta and never a moment without feeling. We cling to happy feeling, somanassa, but we know so little about ourselves and thus we may not recognize the different kinds of happy feeling. When we are laughing there is happy feeling with lobamulasita, but we may not realize that there is happy feeling which is akusala. We should not try to suppress laughing, but it is useful to know the different types of realities which arise. When we see someone else there can be happy feeling arising with attachment or happy feeling arising with kusala citta. The sittas which think of the person we meet are akusala sittas when there is no dhyana, generosity, sila, good moral conduct, or bhavana, mental development. Feeling is sankh Dhamma, a conditioned Dhamma. Feeling is conditioned by the citta and the other Cetasikas it accompanies. Feeling which arises, falls away immediately, it does not stay. Feeling is a khandha, it is one among the 5 khandhas, namely, Vedanakanda 7. We cling to feeling and we take it for self. If our knowledge of feeling is merely theoretical we will not know feeling as it is. When there is awareness of feeling when it appears it can be known as only a type of nama and not self. 3.1.1 Questions. 1. Through how many doors can pleasant mental feeling experience an object? 2. There is a great variety of feelings, but all feelings have something in common. What is the characteristic they have in common? 3. Feeling accompanies every citta. Can any kind of feeling accompany all cittas? 4. Can everybody know the reality of pleasant feeling or of unpleasant feeling? 5. Why is body consciousness, k I of in n and .a, never accompanied by indifferent feeling? 6. Which jati is painful bodily feeling? 7. Which jati is unhappy feeling? Dhammanasa. 8. When an unpleasant tangible object impinges on the body sense, can kusala sittas accompanied by somanassa arise which cognize that unpleasant object? Chapter 4 Perception, sana, which can be translated as perception, recognition or remembrance, is an other cetasika among the 7 universals, which accompany every citta. San-na accompanies every citta, there is no moment without san-na. San-na experiences the same object as the citta it accompanies but it performs its own task, it perceives or recognizes the object and it marks it so that it can be recognized again. The Athas Alani, Part 4, Chapter 1. 110, states about san-na. It has the characteristic of noting one and the function of recognizing what has been previously noted. There is no such thing as perception in the 4 planes of existence without the characteristic of noting. All perceptions have the characteristic of noting. Of them, that perceiving which knows by specialized knowledge has the function of recognizing what has been noted previously. We may see this procedure when the carpenter recognizes a piece of wood which he has marked by specialized knowledge. The Athas Alani then gives a second definition. Perception has the characteristic of perceiving by an act of general inclusion, and the function of making marks as a condition for repeated perception, for recognizing or remembering. 2. As when woodcutters perceive logs and so forth. Its manifestation is the action of interpreting by means of the sign as apprehended, as in the case of blind persons who see an elephant. 3. Or, it has briefness as manifestation, like lightning, owing to its inability to penetrate the object. Its proximate cause is whatever object has appeared, like the perception which arises in young deer mistaking scarecrows for men. The Visuddhimagga, 14:130, gives a similar definition. We can use the words perceiving, noting, recognizing, and marking in order to designate the reality which is san-na, but words are inadequate to describe realities. We should study the characteristic and function of san-na. San-na is not the same as citta, which is the leader in cognizing an object. As we have seen, san-na recognizes the object and it marks it so that it can be recognized again. This is explained by way of a simile. Carpenters put tags or signs on logs so that they can recognize them at once by means of these marks. This simile can help us to understand the complex process of recognizing or remembering. What we in conventional language call remembering consists of many different moments of citta, and each of these moments of citta is accompanied by san-na, which connects past experiences with the present one and conditions again recognition in the future. This connecting function is represented by the words recognition and marking. 4. When the present experience has fallen away, it has become past, and what was future becomes the present, and all the time there is san-na which performs its function so that an object can be recognized. If we remember that san-na accompanies every citta, we will better understand that the characteristic of san-na is not exactly the same as what we mean by the conventional terms of recognition, perception, or marking. Each citta which arises falls away immediately and is succeeded by the next citta, and since each citta is accompanied by san-na which recognizes and marks the object, one can recognize or remember what was perceived or learnt before. The Athas Alani mentions as a manifestation of san-na, briefness, like lightning, owing to its inability to penetrate the object. San-na merely recognizes and marks the object. San-na is different from citta, which is the chief in knowing an object, and different from pan-na, which can know the true nature of realities. 5. The proximate cause of san-na is an object, in whatever way that appears. The object can be a paramatha dhamma, i.e. an ama or rupa, or a concept, pan-adi. Whatever object citta cognizes, san-na recognizes and marks it. San-na performs its function through each of the 6 doors. There is san-na at this moment. When there is seeing, there is san-na, and it recognizes and marks visible object. When there is hearing, there is san-na which recognizes and marks sound. There is san-na when there is smelling, tasting, touching, or when there is the experience of objects through the mind door. Cittas experience objects through the 6 doors, and the san-na which accompanies citta experiences the object through the same doorway and performs its function accordingly. When we recognize someone's voice, this is actually the result of different processes of cittas which experience objects through the sense door and through the mind door. At each moment there is san-na which performs its function. There are moments of hearing of what appears through the ears, of sound, and when we think of someone's voice there are cittas which experience concepts. The hearing conditions the thinking. We could not think of a voice if there were not hearing. It is the same when we think we see a person. There is thinking of a concept, but this thinking is conditioned by the seeing of visible object. The recognition of a person is the result of many different processes of citta, and each moment of citta is accompanied by san-na. There is seeing which experiences visible object, and after the eye door process has been completed, visible object is experienced through the mind door. There are other mind door processes of cittas which experience concepts. San-na accompanies every citta, and also when citta experiences a concept, san-na marks and remembers that object. When we are engaged in the activities of our daily life, do we notice that there is recognition or remembrance? We remember how to use different objects, how to eat with fork, knife and spoon, how to turn on the water tap, how to write or how to find our way when we walk in our house or on the street. We take it for granted that we remember all these things. We should know that it is san-na which remembers. When we are reading, it is due to san-na that we recognize the letters and know their meaning. However, we should not forget that when we are reading there are also moments of seeing, and at such moments san-na performs its function as well. It seems that we see and recognize what we see all at the same time, but this is not so. When we recognize letters and words and remember their meaning, this is not due to one moment of san-na but to many moments of san-na accompanying the cittas which succeed one another in the different processes. The study of san-na can remind us that cittas arise and fall away extremely rapidly. Countless moments of san-na succeed one another and perform their function so that we can remember successive events such as sentences we hear when someone is speaking. There are moments of hearing, and the san-na which accompanies hearing, consciousness merely perceives the sound. It does not know the meaning of what is said. When we understand the meaning of what has been said, there are cittas which experience concepts, and the san-na which accompanies those cittas remembers and marks a concept. Because of many moments of san-na we can follow the trend of thought of a speaker, or we ourselves can reason about something, connect parts of an argument and draw conclusions. All this is not due to our memory but to san-na which is not self but only a kind of nama. What we take for our memory or our recognition is not one moment which stays, but many different moments of san-na which arise and fall away. Because of san-na, past experiences and also concepts and names are remembered. People and things are recognized, also when we do not remember something or we mistake something for something else, there is san-na which accompanies the cittas at such moments. If we have forgotten something, we did not think of the object we wanted to think of, but at that moment we were thinking of another object and this was remembered and marked by san-na. For example, if we go to the market and forget to buy lettuce because we suddenly notice tomatoes and our attention turns to the tomatoes, we say that we have forgotten to buy lettuce. In reality there are moments of san-na all the time since it accompanies each citta, and san-na performs its function all the time. It depends on conditions what object is remembered at a particular moment. It does not always turn out the way we want it. Also when we in vain try to remember a name, there is still san-na, but it remembers and marks an object which is different from the concept we think we should remember. We may have aversion because of our forgetfulness, and also then there is citta accompanied by san-na which performs its function. San-na accompanies cittas which arise in a process, and it also accompanies cittas which do not arise in a process, namely the pat-dhamma citta, rebirth consciousness, the bhavanga citta, life continuum, and the kuti citta, dying consciousness. When we are sound asleep and not dreaming there are bhavanga cittas, and also in between the different processes of cittas there are bhavanga cittas. The object of the pat-dhamma citta, the bhavanga citta and the kuti citta is the same as the object experienced by the jivana cittas which arose shortly before the kuti citta of the previous life 6. We, or rather the cittas which are thinking at this moment, do not know what that object is. However, every time the bhavanga citta arises in between the processes of cittas it experiences that object, and the san-na which accompanies the bhavanga citta remembers that object. San-na never arises alone, it has to accompany citta and other Cetasikas and it is conditioned by them. San-na is sankha era Dhamma, conditioned Dhamma. San-na arises with the citta and then falls away with the citta. San-na is a khandha, it is one among the 5 khandhas. We cling to San-na, we take it for self. San-na arises with all cittas of the 4 jatis. San-na is of the same jati as the citta it accompanies, and thus San-na can be a kusala, vipaka, or kriya. San-na can be classified according to the 6 kinds of objects which are experienced through the 6 doors, and this reminds us that San-na is different all the time. We read in the Gradual Sayings, Book of the Sixes, Chapter 6, Par 9, A Penetrative Discourse. Monks, perceptions are 6, perceptions of visible objects, sounds, smells, tastes, touches and ideas. The perception of visible object is not the perception of sound, and it is not the perception of a concept. When we, for example, talk to someone else, there is San-na which perceives sound, there is San-na which perceives visible object, there is San-na which perceives tangible object, there is San-na which perceives a concept. All these San-nas are completely different from one another, and they arise at different moments. Objects appear one at a time through the different doorways, and different San-nas mark and remember these objects. When we understand this, it will help us to see that our life actually is one moment of citta which experiences one object through one of the 6 doors. The ultimate truth is different from conventional truth, namely, the world of people and things which seem to last. San-na which arises with a kusala citta is also a kusala. San-na may arise together with wrong view. When one takes for permanent what is impermanent, the citta with wrong view is also accompanied by San-na which remembers the object in a distorted way. It is the same when one takes for self what is not self. We read in the Gradual Sayings, Book of the Fours, Chapter 5, Par 9, Perversions, about 4 perversions, vipalasas, of San-na, citta and dit.t.hi. Monks, there are these 4 perversions of perception, San-na, 4 perversions of thought, citta. 4 perversions of view, dit.t.hi. What for? To hold that in the impermanent there is permanence, is a perversion of perception, thought and view. To hold that in dukkha there is not dukkha, is a perversion of perception, thought and view. To hold that in the not self there is self, is a perversion of perception, thought and view. To hold that in the foul there is the fair, is a perversion of perception, thought and view. These are the 4 perversions of perception, thought and view. So long as we have not attained to the stage of pan-na which knows the impermanence of nama and rupa, we may still think that people and things can stay, be it for a long or a short time. Nama and rupa are impermanent, and thus they are dukkha, they cannot be true happiness. We still take what is dukkha for happiness, and we still cling to the concept of self. We also take the foul for the fair. The body is foul, it is not beautiful. However, we cling to our body and take it for something beautiful. So long as one has not attained the first stage of enlightenment, there are still the perversions of San-na, citta and dit.t.hi. The Sotapanna, who has attained the first stage of enlightenment, has eradicated dit.t.hi, wrong view, and thus he has no more perversions which are connected with dit.t.hi. But he has not eradicated all perversions, since they are eradicated in different stages. The Sotapanna still clings to objects, and therefore he can still have the perversions of citta and San-na while he takes for happiness what is not happiness and takes for beautiful what is foul. When we think of a concept such as a flower, we may take the flower for some thing which lasts. The Aryans, those who have attained enlightenment, also think of concepts, but they do so without wrong view. When they recognize a flower, they do not take that moment of recognizing for self. Neither do they take the flower for something which lasts, So long as defilements have not been eradicated, we are subject to rebirth. We have to experience objects through the senses, and on account of these objects clinging arises. We tend to become obsessed by the objects we experience. We read in the middle-length sayings, I, No, L8, Discourse of the Honey Ball, about the origin of perceptions and obsessions and their ending. Ma'e Kakana gave to the monks an explanation about what the Buddha had said in brief. Visual consciousness, your reverences, arises because of eye and visual object. The meeting of the three is sensory impingement, phassa. Feelings are because of sensory impingement. What one feels one perceives, what one perceives one reasons about, what one reasons about obsesses one. What obsesses one is the origin of the number of perceptions and obsessions which assail a man in regard to visual object cognizable by the eye, past, future, present. The same is said with regard to the other doorways. Is this not daily life? We are obsessed by all the objects which are experienced through the 6 doors, objects of the past, the present and the future. It is due to San-Na that we remember what we saw, heard, smelled, tasted, touched and experienced through the mind door. We attach so much importance to our recollections, we often are dreaming about them. However, also such moments can be object of awareness, and thus the thinking can be known as only a kind of nama which arises because of conditions, not self. When realities are known as they appear one at a time through the 6 doorways, one is on the way leading to the end of obsessions. When all defilements have been eradicated, there will be no more conditions for rebirth, no more conditions for being obsessed by objects. San-Na is conditioned by the citta and the other Cetasikas it accompanies, and thus San-Na is different as it accompanies different types of citta. When we listen to the Dhamma and we remember the Dhamma we have heard, there is Kusala San-Na with the Kusala citta. Remembering what one has heard and reflecting about it again and again are important conditions for the arising of sati, which is mindful of what appears now. The San-Na which accompanies mindfulness of the present moment is different from the San-Na accompanying the citta which thinks of realities. San-Na does not only arise with km avakra cittas of the sense sphere, it arises also with cittas of other planes of consciousness. When one develops samatha, San-Na recognizes and marks the meditation subject of samatha. When calm is more developed, one may acquire a mental image, nimitta 7, of the meditation subject. The San-Na which remembers a mental image of a meditation subject is different from the San-Na which arises all the time in daily life and perceives sense objects. When one attains Jhana, San-Na accompanies the Jhana citta, and then San-Na is not of the sensuous plane of consciousness. When San-Na accompanies Rup avakra citta, Rupa Jhana citta, San-Na is also Rup avakra, and when San-Na accompanies Arupa avakra citta, Arupajhana citta, San-Na is also Arupa avakra. The San-Na which is Arupa avakra is more refined than the San-Na which is Rupa avakra. The 4th stage of Arupajhana is the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception, and eva San-Na asan Ayatana, 8. The San-Na which accompanies Arupa avakra citta of the 4th stage of Jhana is extremely subtle. We read in the Visuddhimagga. The perception here is neither perception, since it is incapable of performing the decisive function of perception, nor yet non-perception, since it is present in a subtle state as a residual formation, thus it is neither perception nor non-perception. 9. San-Na accompanies Lokuttara citta which experiences Nibbana, and then San-Na is also Lokuttara. Nibbana cannot be attained unless conditioned realities are known as they are, as impermanent, dukkha and anatta. We read in the Gradual Sayings, Book of the Tens, Chapter 6, Par 6, Ideas, about 10 kinds of san-na which are of great fruit and are leading to the deathless, which is nibbana. The Pali term san-na is here translated as idea. We read about the 10 ideas which should be developed. Monks, these 10 ideas, if made to grow and made much of, are of great fruit, of great profit for plunging into the deathless, for ending up in the deathless. What 10 ideas? Chapter 4, Perception, the idea of the foul, of death, of repulsiveness in food, of distaste for all the world, the idea of impermanence, of dukkha in impermanence, of not-self in dukkha, the idea of abandoning, of fading, of ending. These 10 ideas, monks, if made to grow, are of great profit for plunging into the deathless, for ending up in the deathless. 4.1.1 Questions. 1. San-na accompanies each citta, but it falls away completely with the citta. How can we still remember things which happened in the past? 2. When we see a house, through which doorway does san-na perform its function? 3. When we mistake something for something else, how can there still be san-na at such a moment? 4. When we recognize a house, can there be perversion of san-na? 5. Can the Sotapanna think of concepts and recognize people and things? 6. Give examples of akusala san-na. 7. How can one develop perception of impermanence, anicca san-na? Chapter 5 Volition, Satana, volition, is another cetasika among the universals, the 7 cetasikas which accompany every citta. Satana is often translated as volition, but we should not be misled by the conventional term which designates the reality of satana. Satana accompanies, together with phassa, contact, vedana, feeling, san-na, remembrance, and the other universals, all cittas of the 4 jatis. Thus, satana accompanies kusala citta, akusala citta, vipaka citta, and kirya citta. When we intend to steal or when we make the resolution not to kill, it is evident that there is satana. However, also when we are seeing or hearing, and even when we are asleep, there is satana since it accompanies every citta. There is no citta without satana. The Athesa Lin I, Part 4, Chapter 1, 111, states about satana that its characteristic is coordinating the associated dhammas, citta and the other cetasikas, on the object and that its function is willing. We read, there is no such thing as volition in the 4 planes of existence without the characteristic of coordinating, all volition has it. But the function of willing is only in moral, kusala, and immoral, akusala, states that it has directing as manifestation. It arises directing associated states, like the chief disciple, the chief carpenter, etc., who fulfill their own and others' duties. The Visuddhimagga, 14, 135, gives a similar definition. 1. The characteristic of satana is coordinating. It coordinates the citta and the other cetasikas at AC companies on the object. Citta cognizes the object, it is the leader in knowing the object. The cetasikas which accompany citta share the same object, but they each have to fulfill their own task. For example, phassa contacts the object, vedana feels, experiences the taste of the object, and san-na marks and remembers the object. Satana sees to it that the other dhammas it arises together with fulfill their tasks with regard to the object they all share. Every satana which arises, no matter whether it accompanies kusala citta, akusala citta, vipaka citta, or kirya citta, has to coordinate the tasks of the other dhammas it accompanies. That satana which accompanies kusala citta and akusala citta has, in addition to coordinating, another task to perform, willing or activity of kama 2. According to the Athas Allen I, as to activity in moral and immoral acts, Cetana is exceedingly energetic, whereas the accompanying Cetasikas play only a restricted part. Cetana, which accompanies Kusala Citta and Akusala Citta, coordinates the work of the other Cetasikas it arises together with, and it wills Kusala or Akusala, thus, it makes a double effort. The Thesalin compares the double task of Cetana to the task of a landowner who directs the work of his laborers, looks after them, and also takes himself an equal share of the work. He doubles his strength and doubles his effort. Even so, volition doubles its strength and its effort in moral and immoral acts. As regards the manifestation of Cetana, which is directing, the Athas Alani pairs Cetana with the chief disciple who recites his own lessons and makes the other pupils recite their lessons as well, with the chief carpenter who does his own work and makes the other carpenters do their work, or with the general who fights himself and makes the other soldiers take part in the battle, for when he begins, the others follow his example. Even so, when volition starts work on its object, it sets associated states to do each its own. The Cetana, which accompanies Vipakasitta and Kiryasitta, merely coordinates the tasks of the other Dhammas it accompanies. It does not will Kusala or Akusala, and it does not motivate wholesome or unwholesome deeds. For example, seeing, consciousness, which is Vipakasitta, the result of Kama, is accompanied by Cetana, and this Cetana is also Vipaka. The Cetana, which accompanies seeing consciousness, directs the tasks which the accompanying Dhammas have to fulfill with regard to visible object. It directs, for example, Phassa, which contacts visible object, Vedana, which feels, and Sanana, which marks and remembers visible object. Cetana, which accompanies Kusala Citta or Akusala Citta, has a double task. It is exceedingly energetic. Apart from coordinating the other Dhammas, it wills Kusala or Akusala, and when it has the intensity to motivate a deed through body, speech, or mind, it is capable of producing the result of that deed later on. When we speak about Kusala Kama or Akusala Kama, we usually think of courses of action, Kama Pathas, which can be performed through body, speech, or mind. However, we should remember that when we perform wholesome or unwholesome deeds, it is actually the wholesome or unwholesome volition or intention which motivates the deed, and this is the activity of Kama which is accumulated and can produce its appropriate result later on. Thus, Akusala Kama and Kusala Kama are actually Akusala Cetana and Kusala Cetana. Akusala Cetana and Kusala Cetana can have many intensities. They can be coarse or more subtle. When they are more subtle, they do not motivate Kama Pathas, courses of action, through body, speech, or mind. For example, when we like our food, there is Lobhamulasita, and it is accompanied by Akusala Cetana. Although the Lobhamulasita does not motivate an unwholesome course of action, it is not Kusala but Akusala. It is different from Kusala Citta with generosity, from Kusala Citta which observes Sila, or from Kusala Citta which applies itself to mental development. Whenever we do not apply ourselves to Dhyana, Sila, or Bhavana, we act, speak, or think with Akusala Cittas. Thus, there is likely to be a Kusala Citta very often in a day, since the moments we apply ourselves to Kusala are very rare. There is likely to be a Kusala Citta when we take hold of objects, eat, drink, or talk. When we laugh, there is Lobhamula Citta. We may not realize that there is a Kusala Citta when the degree of Akusala does not have the intensity of harming others, but in fact there are countless moments of Akusala Citta. When we are lying or slandering, the degree of Akusala is more coarse, and at such moments Akusala Cetana motivates Akusala Kamapatha, course of action, through speech. The Akusala Cetana directs the other Dhammas it accompanies so that they perform their own tasks, and it wills Akusala. Moreover, it is able to produce the appropriate result of the bad deed later on, since the unwholesome volition or kama is accumulated. Each citta which arises falls away, but it conditions the succeeding citta. Since our life is an uninterrupted series of cittas which succeed one another, unwholesome and wholesome volitions or kamas are accumulated from moment to moment and can therefore produce results later on. There are 10 kinds of akusala kama patha, courses of action, which are performed through body, speech or mind 3. They are killing, stealing, sexual misbehavior, lying, slandering, rude speech, frivolous talk, covetousness, ill will and wrong view. The akusala cetana, or akusala kama, which motivates such a deed is capable of producing akusala vipaka in the form of rebirth in an unhappy plane of existence, or it can produce akusala vipaka which arises in the course of one's life, vipakasitas which experience unpleasant objects through the senses. Kama patha can be of different degrees and thus its result is of different degrees. Kama patha is not always a completed action. There are certain constituent factors which make kama patha a completed action, and for each of the kama pathas these factors are different. For example, in the case of killing there have to be a living being, consciousness that there is a living being, intention of killing, the effort of killing and consequent death, Athas Alani, Part 3, Chapter 5, 97. When a large animal is killed the degree of akusala kama is higher than when a small animal is killed. The killing of a human being is akusala kama which is of a higher degree than the killing of an animal. In the case of slandering, there are 4 factors which make it a completed action: other persons to be divided, the purpose, they will be separated, or the desire to endear oneself to another, the corresponding effort, the communication, Thesalini, same section, 100. We read, but when there is no rupture among others, the offense does not amount to a complete course, it does so only when there is a rupture. Akusala kama patha which is a completed action is capable of producing an unhappy rebirth. Some akusala kamas which are very powerful such as killing a parent produce an unhappy rebirth in the immediately following life. Some akusala kamas produce results in this life. Some in following lives. There are many in 10 cities of akusala kama and they produce their results accordingly. We read in the Gradual Sayings, Book of the Eights, Chapter 4, Part 10, very trifling, about different results which are produced by akusala kamas. The very trifling result which is mentioned in the sutta is the unpleasant result which arises in the course of one's life. We read, monks, taking life, when pursued, practiced, increased, brings one to hell, to an animal's womb, to the Pitta realm. 4. What is the very trifling result of taking life is the shortening of a man's life. Monks, stealing, when pursued, brings one to hell, the very trifling result is a man's loss of wealth. Monks, fleshly lusts when pursued, bring one to hell, the very trifling result is a man's rivalry and hatred. Monks, lying when pursued, brings one to hell, the very trifling result is the slandering and false speaking for a man. Monks, backbiting, when pursued, brings one to hell, the very trifling result is the breaking up of a man's friendships. Monks, harsh speech, when pursued, brings one to hell, the very trifling result is an unpleasant noise for a man. Monks, frivolous talk, when pursued, brings one to hell. The very trifling result is unacceptable speech for a man. Monks, drinking strong drink, when pursued, practiced, increased, brings one to hell, to an animal's womb, to the Pitta realm. What is the very trifling result of drinking strong drink is madness for a man. When kusala kama patha is performed, kusala cetana wills kusala, and it also coordinates the tasks of the other dhammas it accompanies. Kusala Citta is capable of producing its appropriate result later on in the form of rebirth in a happy plane, or it can produce its result in the course of life in the form of pleasant experiences through the senses. Kusala Kama can be classified as dhyana, generosity, sila, morality or virtue, and bhavana, mental development. Dhyana comprises, apart from giving gifts, many other forms of kusala. Included in dhyana are, for example, appreciating the kusala cittas of others and sharing one's merits. As to the sharing of one's merits, when someone has done a wholesome deed and he gives others the opportunity to rejoice in the kusala he has performed, it is a way of dhyana. At such a moment he helps others to have kusala cittas as well. The observance of the precepts, which is sila, can also be considered as a way of dhyana. We read in the Gradual Sayings, Book of the Eights, Chapter 4, Par 9, Outcomes of Merit, that going for refuge to the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha leads to happy results, and that there are further 5 gifts which lead to happy results. These are the following. Herein, monks, a noble disciple gives up the taking of life and abstains from it. By abstaining from the taking of life, the noble disciple gives to immeasurable beings freedom from fear, gives to them freedom from hostility, and freedom from oppression. By giving to immeasurable beings freedom from fear, hostility, and oppression, he himself will enjoy immeasurable freedom from fear, hostility, and oppression. Further, monks, a noble disciple gives up the taking of what is not given. Gives up sexual misconduct. Gives up wrong speech. Gives up intoxicating drinks and drugs causing heedlessness, and abstains from them. By abstaining from intoxicating drinks and drugs, the noble disciple gives to immeasurable beings freedom from fear, freedom from hostility, and freedom from oppression. By giving to immeasurable beings freedom from fear, hostility, and oppression, he himself will enjoy immeasurable freedom from fear, freedom from hostility, and freedom from oppression. Chapter 5, Volition 37. When we abstain from ill deeds, we give others the opportunity to live in safety and without fear. Sila is abstaining from ill deeds which are committed through body or speech, but apart from abstaining from ill deeds there are many other aspects of Sila 6. When one abstains from killing, it is kusala Sila. But also when there is no opportunity for killing, there can be kusala Sila. Someone can make the resolution to spare the lives of all living beings, even of the smallest insects he can hardly see. Even so, someone can make the resolution to abstain from other kinds of akusala kama, even when the opportunity to commit them has not arisen. For example, when a person has found out that intoxicating drinks have a bad effect, kusala citta may take the resolution to refrain in the future from intoxicating drinks. The wholesome intention at such a moment can be a condition for abstaining later on when there is an opportunity for drinking. However, kusala citta is not self, it arises when there are conditions for it. A moment later a kusala citta may arise and our good intentions are forgotten. We may be annoyed that we do not live up to our good intentions, but we should remember that kusala citta and akusala citta arise because of their own conditions. Akusala citta arises because of conditions which are entirely different from the conditions for the kusala citta which made the resolution to observe Sila. We all have accumulated tendencies to kusala and to akusala, and it depends on conditions whether we perform kusala kama or akusala kama. When there is no development of satapat.t.hana, it is very difficult to observe the precepts. The Visuddhimagga mentions in the section on Sila, Chapter 1, 53-60, the guarding of the sense doors, because this can be considered as an aspect of Sila. When there is mindfulness of, for example, visible object, and visible object is not taken for a thing or a person but is known as only a kind of rupa appearing through the eyes, the eye door is guarded. At that moment there is no attachment to visible object, no aversion towards it, no ignorance about it. Later on we may become absorbed in what we see and we may cling to it, but at the moment of mindfulness the doorways are guarded and there is restraint of the senses. Thus, mindfulness of Nama and Rupa, which is a form of Bha Van A, mental development, can also be considered as Sila, Kusala Kama, which is Bh Avana, comprises studying and teaching Dhamma, Samatha, tranquil meditation, and Vipassana, the development of right understand ing of realities. The development of right understanding is the highest form of Kusala Kama because it leads to the eradication of ignorance. When ignorance has been eradicated there are no more conditions for rebirth in a next life, one is freed from the cycle of birth and death. We have accumulated different degrees of Kusala Kama and Akusala Kama and they are capable of producing their appropriate results when there is opportunity for it. We may be inclined to think that the term accumulation only pertains to Kama. But not only Kama is accumulated, also tendencies to Kusala and Akusala are accumulated. When one steals, Akusala Kama is accumulated which is capable of producing Vipaka later on. However, Vipaka is not the only effect of this unwholesome deed. Also the tendency to stealing is accumulated and thus there are conditions that one steals again. We have the potential in us for all kinds of bad deeds and when there is an opportunity Akusala Cetana can motivate a bad deed through body, speech and mind. We should distinguish the condition for Vipaka Citta from the condition for Kusala Citta or for Akusala Citta. Accumulated Kama which produces Vipaka is one type of condition. The accumulated tendencies to good and evil due to which Kusala Citta and Akusala Citta arise are another type of condition. Thus, there are different types of condition which play their part in our life. Tendencies to all kinds of defilements are accumulated. When, for example, Lobha Citta arises, the tendency to Lobha is accumulated and thus there are conditions for the arising again of Lobha Citta. We are bound to be attached because we have accumulated such an amount of Lobha. Not only unwholesome tendencies, but also wholesome tendencies can be accumulated. When there is a moment of right mindfulness of the reality which appears now, it is a condition for the arising of mindfulness again, later on. We tend to be attached rather than to be mindful, but when mindfulness has been accumulated more it will be less difficult to be mindful. Whatever tendency is accumulated now will bear on our life in the future. 7. In the Cetasikas, birth stories, Kadaka Nikaya, we find many examples of people who committed the same deeds again and again in successive lives. For example, Devdatta who tried to kill the Buddha had tried to kill him before, in many former lives when the Buddha was still a bodhisattva. We read in the Dhammadhaja Jayataka 220, that the Buddha said, "This is not the first time Devdatta has tried to murder me and has not, even frightened me. He did the same before." We read in the Dutta Jayataka 260, about a monk who was very greedy. Also in former lives he had been greedy. The Buddha said to him, "You were greedy before, monk, as you are now, and in olden days for your greed you had your head cleft with a sword." The Buddha related a story of one of his past lives. He had such a craving for the dainty food of a king that he took a piece of rice from the king's dish and this nearly cost him his life. After the Buddha had told this story he explained the four noble truths and the greedy monk became an agmi, the noble person who has attained the third stage of enlightenment. While he listened to the Buddha he must have been mindful of Nama and Rupa and his Pan-Na developed to the degree that all clinging to sensuous objects could be eradicated. In the Tilamat.T.Hi Jayataka 252, we read about a monk who fell easily into a rage and spoke roughly. The Buddha said, "This is not the first time, monks, that this man has been passionate. He was just the same before. He then related a story of one of his past lives. After the discourse, the Buddha explained the Four Noble Truths, and the passionate monk became an agmi. He eradicated anger completely. Even though one has strong inclinations to greed and anger, accumulated for many lives, the pan-na of the Eightfold Path can eventually eradicate defilements. The greedy monk and the angry monk in the above-mentioned Cetasikas could attain enlightenment because they had also accumulated sati and pan-na. Listening to the Buddha was the right condition for them to attain the stage of the agmi. If we understand that our behavior now is conditioned by accumulated inclinations we had in the past, we will be less inclined to take it for my behavior. Each reality which arises is conditioned. Generosity which arises is conditioned by generosity in the past, it is not my generosity. Anger which arises is conditioned by anger in the past, it is not my anger. If we understand that our behavior now is conditioned by accumulated inclinations we had in the past, we will be less inclined to take it for my behavior. Each reality which arises is conditioned. Generosity which arises is conditioned by generosity in the past, it is not my generosity. Anger which arises is conditioned by anger in the past, it is not my anger. There is no self who can force citta to be kusala citta, but conditions can be cultivated so that kusala citta can arise more often. Important conditions for the arising of kusala citta with pan-na are friendship with a person who has right understanding of the Dhamma and who can explain the Dhamma in the right way. Listening to the teachings and studying them, and above all mindfulness of the reality which appears now, we should consider why we want to perform kusala kama. Is our aim kusala vipaka? Kusala kama produces kusala vipaka because this is the natural course of things, but if we want to perform kusala kama in order to have a pleasant result, such as a happy rebirth, there is clinging. The aim of the Buddha's teachings is the eradication of defilements. Wholesome deeds will be purer if we perform them because we see the benefit of eliminating defilements. Since human life is very short, we should not lose any opportunity for dana, sila, or bhavana. If we develop the Eightfold Path, there will eventually be purification of all defilements. 5.1.1 Questions. 1. There is citta also when we are sound asleep. What is its function at such a moment? 2. When we observe sila, how does the function of citta? 3. Which cetasika is a kusala kama or kusala kama? 4. How can a deed performed in the past produce a result later on? 5. What kind of result can be produced by a kusala kama patha, unwholesome course of action, which is completed? 6. What are the other forms of vipaka produced by kama, apart from rebirth, consciousness? 6. Volition in the cycle of birth and death. Citta, volition, is a cetasika which arises with every citta, as we have seen. Seeing, hearing or thinking which arise now are accompanied by citta. Every type of citta performs the function of coordinating the different tasks of the accompanying dhammas, no matter whether the citta is kusala citta, akusala citta, vipaka citta, or kriya citta. When citta accompanies kusala citta or akusala citta, it performs, besides the function of coordinating, another function. It wills kusala or akusala, and it can motivate a wholesome or an unwholesome deed through body, speech or mind. Kusala citta and akusala citta, which are actually kusala kama and akusala kama, are capable of producing the appropriate results of the deeds they motivated. Kusala kama and akusala kama can produce results in the form of rebirth, consciousness in different planes of existence, or in the form of vipaka cittas which arise in the course of one's life, such as seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, or the experience of tangibles through the body sense. We experience pleasant objects and unpleasant objects through the senses, and it depends on karma whether we have a pleasant experience or an unpleasant experience through these senses. Citta or karma which motivates a good deed or a bad deed falls away immediately together with the citta, but since each citta is succeeded by the next one, karma is accumulated and thus it can produce its result later on, even in a next life. How do we know whether there is a next life? We will understand more about the next life if we understand our life right now. By the term human life, in conventional language we mean the duration of time we are in this human plane of existence. However, in order to know the truth we should know realities, not merely conventional terms. In fact, our life consists of innumerable moments of citta which arise and fall away, succeeding one another. There is birth and death of citta at each moment, and thus life lasts as long as one moment of citta. When there is citta which sees, there is only that citta, there cannot be any other citta at the same time. At that moment our life is seeing. Seeing does not last, it falls away again. When there is citta which hears, there is only that citta and our life is hearing. This citta also falls away and is succeeded by the next one. In this life we see and hear pleasant and unpleasant objects, we have pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling or indifferent feeling. We are full of attachment, aversion and ignorance. Sometimes we perform wholesome deeds, we are generous, we abstain from killing and we develop right understanding. Our life actually consists of one moment of citta which experiences an object. The citta of a moment ago has fallen away completely, but right now another citta has arisen and this falls away again. When we understand that there are conditions for each citta to be succeeded by the next one, we will also understand that the last citta of this life, the dying consciousness, will be succeeded by a next citta which is the rebirth consciousness of the next life. So long as we are in the cycle of birth and death, there are conditions for citta to arise and to be succeeded by a next one. Rebirth consciousness, the first citta of life, and its accompanying Cetasikas are the mental result of karma. In the planes where there are Nama and Rupa, karma also produces Rupa from the first moment of life. Also throughout life there are Rupa produced by karma such as eye sense, ear sense, and the other senses which are the means for Vipakasitas to experience pleasant or unpleasant objects. The Rupa produced by karma are the physical results of karma. The different Rupa of our body are not only produced by karma, but also by citta, by temperature, and by nutrition. Thus, there are four factors which each produce different Rupa of our body. In this life we perform good deeds and bad deeds. We do not know which deed will produce the next rebirth consciousness. Also a deed which was performed in a past life is capable of producing the next rebirth consciousness. Since we are now in the human plane of existence, it was kusala karma which produced the first citta of our life. Birth in the human plane is a happy rebirth. If the karma which will produce the rebirth consciousness of the next life is a kusala karma, there will be an unhappy rebirth, and if it is kusala karma there will be a happy rebirth. Nobody can choose his own rebirth. The rebirth consciousness is a conditioned Dhamma, it is Sankhya Dhamma. This life consists of citta, cetasika and rupa which are conditioned dhammas. Also in a next life there are bound to be citta, cetasika and rupa, conditioned dhammas. There will be kusala cittas, akusala cittas, vipakasitas and kiryasitas. If we are not born in an unhappy plane there can be again the development of right understanding. Since kusala karma and akusala karma are capable of producing rebirth consciousness, they are a link in the dependent origination, pat-dada-kasamupeda, the conditional origination of phenomena. The doctrine of the dependent origination explains the conditions for the continuation of the cycle of birth and death by way of 12 links, starting from ignorance, of Ij. Ignorance is mentioned as the first link. It is because of not knowing realities as they are, that we have to be born and that we have to suffer old age, sickness and death. The eradication of ignorance is the end of the cycle and thus the end of dukkha. Ignorance, the first link, conditions san kha, the second link. San kha arith kusalat satan as and akusalat satan as, the kamas, which are capable of producing vipaka, san kha conditions vin enandate, consciousness. Vin enandate, the third link, is vipaka which can be rebirth consciousness or vipaka arising throughout life such as seeing or hearing. The dependent origination represents the conditions for our present life and our life in the future, thus, the conditions for the continuation of the cycle of birth and death, san kha, the second link in the dependent origination, is satan a in its funk, tyan of kama which produces vipaka, so that the cycle of birth and death continues one. Under this aspect satan a is also called abhisan kha. The prefix abhi is sometimes used in the sense of preponderance. Satan a which is kusala kama or akusala kama has preponderance in the conditioning of rebirth. Only satan a which accompanies kusala citta or akusala citta can be abhisan kha. Satan a which accompanies vipaka citta and kirya citta cannot be abhisan kha. All abhisan kha or kama formations are a link in the dependent origination, they are conditioned by ignorance. Kusala kama is still conditioned by ignorance, although at the moment of kusala citta there is no ignorance accompanying the citta. So long as there is ignorance we perform kama which can produce vipaka, we will be reborn and thus the cycle continues. We read in the Visuddhimagga, 17:119, that the ignorant man is like a blind person, as one born blind, who gropes along, without assistance from a guide, chooses a road that may be right, at one time, at another wrong, so while this foolish man pursues the round of births without a guide. Now to do merit he may choose, and now demerit in such plight, but when the Dhamma he comes to know, and penetrates the truths beside, then ignorance is put to flight, at last, and he in peace may go. While we study the different aspects of satan a we can see that satan a is different as it arises with different cittas. Satan a which accompanies kusala citta or akusala citta wills kusala or akusala and it is capable of producing vipaka, it is, except in the case of satan a which accompanies magga citta, abhisan kha or kama formation. The satanas which accompany rupavakara citta and arupavakara citta can produce rebirth in higher planes of existence. In Rupa-Brahma planes and Arupa-Brahma planes, they are a link in the dependent origination. Satan a which accompanies vipaka citta is vipaka, it is produced by a kusala kama or kusala kama. This type of satan a has only the function of coordinating the other dhammas it accompanies. The satan a which accompanies kirya citta is not kusala or akusala, nor is it vipaka, it is of the jati which is kriya, inoperative. This type of satan a has only the function of coordinating. Satan a which accompanies lokuttara citta is not a link in the dependent orig in athayan. The lokuttara citta which is magga citta, path consciousness, produces vipaka, the phala citta or fruit consciousness, immediately, the phala citta succeeds the magga citta. Since the magga citta eradicates defilements it will free one from the cycle of birth and death. The arahat is freed from rebirth. He does not perform kama which can produce vipaka. The satan a which accompanies the kirya cittas of the arahat and the ahatuka kirya citta which is the hasatupata citta, smile, producing consciousness, of the arahat, is not abhisan kha, it is not a link in the dependent origination. As we have seen, Cetana which is kusala kama or akusala kama can produce vipaka, time and again there are pleasant or unpleasant experiences through the senses and these are vipakasitas, we see, hear, smell, taste or experience through the body sense pleasant or unpleasant objects. We may know in theory that vipakasitas are sittas which are result, different from kusala sittas and akusala sittas, but theoretical knowledge is not enough. We should learn to distinguish different types of citta when they appear. Each situation in life consists of many different moments which arise because of different types of conditions. For example, when we hurt ourselves because of an accident. There is an unpleasant experience through the body sense which is vipaka, but the moments of vipaka fall away immediately and very shortly afterwards aversion is bound to arise. It is difficult to distinguish the moment of vipaka from the moment of akusala citta, cittas succeed one another very rapidly. When we think, this is vipaka, the moments of vipaka have fallen away already, and the cittas which think are either kusala or akusala. There are different types of conditions for the cittas which arise. The akusala CITTAS and kusala cittas are conditioned by the accumulated tendencies to kusala and akusala, whereas the experience of a pleasant or unpleasant object through one of the senses such as seeing or hearing is vipaka, which is conditioned by kama. Cetana is sankhara Dhamma, a conditioned Dhamma. It is conditioned by the citta and the other Cetasikas it accompanies. The word sankhara has different meanings depending on the context in which it is used. The word sankhara used in the context of the dependent origination means kama formation. Cetana as a link in the dependent origination is kama formation, kama which is capable of producing vipaka so that the cycle of birth and death continues. At this moment we are in the cycle of birth and death and we cling to life, we want to go on living. We think that life is desirable because we do not know what life really is, only nama and rupa which do not stay. We cling to the self, we want to be liked and admired by others, we want to be successful in our work. However, we have many frustrations in life. When we do not get what we want we are disappointed. So long as there are defilements there is no end to the cycle of birth and death, but there can be an end to the cycle if we begin to know this moment of seeing, visible object, hearing, sound or thinking as it is, as only conditioned realities which do not stay. We are forgetful of realities very often, but reminders to be aware are right at hand. We can be reminded to be aware when we notice our own as well as other people's clinging to all objects and the sorrow caused by clinging. In the Kindred Sayings, 3, First 50, Chapter 3, Part 23, Understanding, we read that the 5 khandhas, that is all conditioned realities which appear in our life, have to be understood as they are. We read that the Buddha, while he was at Savatthi, said to the monks, "Monks, I will show you things that are to be understood, likewise understanding." Do you listen to it, and what, monks, are the things to be understood? Body, monks, is a thing to be understood, feeling is a thing to be understood, perception, the activities, sankhara, and consciousness also, these, monks, are the things that are to be understood, and what, monks, is understanding, the destruction of lust. The destruction of hatred, the destruction of illusion, that, monks, is called understanding. If there is awareness and understanding right now of seeing, hearing or any other reality which appears, there will eventually be an end to rebirth. 6.0.1 Questions. 1. How can we know that there is a next life? 2. Which kinds of Cetana are a link in the dependent origination? 3. Why is Satana which accompanies Magasiddha not Kama formation? 4. Kusala Kama is capable of producing Vipaka and thus it is a link in the dependent origination. Why does it still make sense to perform Kusala Kama? Chapter 7 Concentration, Ekagata, Ekagata, concentration or one-pointedness, is another cetasika among the 7 universals, which arises with every citta, with Kusala citta, Akusala citta, Vipaka citta and Kriya citta. It arises with all cittas of all planes of consciousness, but, as we will see, its quality is different as it arises with different cittas. The characteristic of citta is cognizing an object and thus, every citta which arises must have an object. There is no citta without an object and each citta can know only one object at a time. Ekagata is the cetasika which has as function to focus on that one object. Seeing consciousness, for example, can only know visible object. It cannot know any other object and Ekagata focuses on visible object. Hearing consciousness can only know sound, it cannot know visible object or any other object and Ekagata focuses on sound. The word object, Aramanda, as it is used in the Abhidhamma does not have the same meaning as the word object or thing we use in common language. In common language we may call a thing such as a vase an object. We may think that we can see a vase, touch it and know that it is a vase all at the same time. In reality there are different cittas which know different objects, Aramandadas, through their appropriate doorways. These cittas arise one at a time and know only one object at a time. The citta which sees knows only visible object, it cannot know tactile object or a concept. Visible object is that which is experienced through the eyes. What is seen cannot be touched. We may understand this in theory, but the truth should be verified by being mindful of different objects which appear one at a time. When we speak about an Araman.a, an object, we have to specify which kind of Araman. A. There is visible object which is known through the eye door. There is sound which is known through the ear door. Smell, taste and tactile object are known through their appropriate sense doors. Through the mind door all these objects can be known as well. Everything which is real and also concepts and ideas, which are not real in the absolute sense, can be known through the mind door. Thus we see that the word object in the Abhidhamma has a very precise meaning. Ekagata which has as function to focus on an object is translated as one-pointedness or concentration. When we hear the word concentration we may believe that Ekagata only occurs in samatha, tranquil meditation, but this is not so. It is true that when calm is developed Ekagata also develops, but Ekagata does not only occur in samatha. Ekagata accompanies every citta, although its quality is different as it arises with different cittas. Even when we are, as we call it in common language, distracted, there is Ekagata arising with the akusala citta since it arises with every citta. It focuses on the object which is cognized at that moment. For example, when there is mohamula citta, citta rooted in ignorance, accompanied by adhaka, restlessness, there is also Ekagata cetasika accompanying that citta. There is Ekagata arising with all types of akusala citta. When we enjoy a beautiful sight or pleasant music there is Ekagata cetasika with the lobamula citta. At that moment we are absorbed in the pleasant object and enslaved to it. There is concentration when one performs ill deeds. Ekagata which accompanies akusala citta is also called mich-a samadhi, wrong concentration. Ekagata which accompanies kusala citta is also called sam-a samadhi, right concentration. Samadhi is another word for Ekagata cetasika. Though wrong concentration and right concentration are both Ekagata cetasika their qualities are different. Samadhi focuses on the object in the right way, the wholesome way. There are many levels of right concentration. The Athas Alan I, 1, Part 4, Chapter 1, 118, 119, states about Ekagat A, and here it deals actually with Samadhi 1, this concentration, known as one-pointedness of mind. Has non-scattering, of itself, or non-distraction, of associated states, as characteristic, the welding together of the coexistent states as function, as water needs bath powder into a paste, and peace of mind or knowledge as manifesta, tie-in. For it has been said, he who is concentrated knows, sees according to the truth. It is distinguished by having ease, sukha, usually, as prox, imate cause 2. Like the steadiness of a lamp in the absence of wind, so should steadfastness of mind be understood. The Visuddhimagga, 14, 139, gives a similar definition, except that it mentions only peace of mind as manifestation, not knowledge. Samadhi is one of the jhana factors which are developed in samatha in order to suppress the hindrances and attain jhana 3. The jhana factors of applied thought, vitakka, sustained thought, vikara, enthusiasm, piti, happy feeling, sukha, and samadhi have to be developed together in order to attain jhana. All the jhana factors assist the citta to attain tranquility by means of a meditation subject. Some people take wrong concentration for right concentration of samatha. They want to try to concentrate on one point with the desire to become relaxed. Then there is a kusala citta with clinging to relaxation. The aim of samatha is not what we mean by the word relaxation in common language, but it is the temporary elimination of defilements. In order to develop samatha in the right way, right understanding of its development is indispensable. Right understanding should know precisely when the citta is kusala citta and when a kusala citta, and it should know the characteristic of calm so that it can be developed. There are different stages of calm, and as calm becomes stronger, samadhi also develops 4. Ekagate cetasika, which accompanies Rupavakra citta, Rupajayachana citta, is altogether different from Ekagate arising with Km avakra citta, citta of the sense sphere. In each of the higher stages of jhana there is a higher degree of calm, and thus Ekagate becomes more refined. Ekagate which accompanies Rupavakra citta is different again. It is more tranquil and more refined than Ekagate arising with Rupavakra citta. There is also samadhi of vipassana. As we have seen, the second manaphase, tat-ion of Ekagate Cetasika or samadhi mentioned by the Athas Alan I is knowledge or wisdom. When pan-na knows anama or a rupa as it is, there is at that moment also right concentration performing its function. Samadhi is one of the factors of the Eightfold Path. When pan-na knows, for example, the visible object which presents itself as only a rupa appearing through the eyes, or the seeing which presents itself as only a nama which experiences visible object, there is also right concentration at that moment. Samadhi focuses on the object in the right way. When samadhi accompanies lokuttara citta, samadhi is also lokuttara, and it focuses on nibbana. Then samadhi is a factor of the supramundane Eightfold Path, lokuttara magga. Some people believe that in the development of vipassana they should try to focus on particular namas and rupa in order to know them as they are. If concentration accompanies a citta with desire for result, it is wrong concentration. So long as one has not become a sotapanna, the person who has attained the first stage of enlightenment, the inclination to wrong practice has not been eradicated. We may still be led by desire, and then we are on the wrong way. When anama or rupa appears through one of the 6 doors, there can be mindfulness of it, and then, at that moment, right understanding of that reality can be developed. Right understanding is accompanied by right concentration, which has arisen because of the appropriate conditions and which performs its function without the need to think of focusing on a particular object. Mindfulness, right understanding and right concentration are realities which arise because of their own conditions, they are anat-a. There is no self who can direct the arising of any citta or who can regulate the experiencing of a particular object. But the conditions for right mindfulness and right understanding can be cultivated. They are studying the realities the Buddha taught and considering them when they appear in daily life. In the Gradual Sayings, Book of the Fours, Chapter 5, Part 1, Concentration, we read about 4 ways of developing concentration. As to the first way, the Buddha explained that this is the development of the 4 stages of jhana which leads to happy living in this life. As to the second kind, this is the concentration on consciousness of light, which is a meditation subject of samatha. This leads to knowledge and insight, which means in this context, according to the commentary, Manoratha Puran. Clairvoyance. As regards the third way of developing concentration, this leads, if developed and made much of, to mindfulness and well-awareness. We read, herein, monks, the feelings which arise in a monk are evident to him, the feelings which abide with him are evident to him, the feelings which come to an end in him are evident to him. The perceptions which arise in him, the trains of thought which arise in him, which abide with him, which come to an end in him are evident to him. This, monks, is called the making concentration to become, which conduces to mindfulness and well-awareness. As regard the fourth way of developing concentration, this leads to the destruction of the asavas, defilements. We read, and what sort of making concentration to become, if developed and made much of, conduces to the destruction of the asavas. Herein a monk dwells, observing the rise and fall in the 5 khandhas of grasping, thus, such is arupa, such is the arising of arupa, such its vanishing. Such is feeling, such is perception, such are the activities. Such is consciousness, such is the arising of consciousness, such the vanishing of consciousness. This, monks, is called the making concentration to become, which conduces to the destruction of the asavas. These are the 4 forms of it. Moreover, in this connection I thus spoke in the chapter on the goal, in the sutta called, the questions of Pun. N.aka: by searching in the world things high and low, he who has naught to stir him in the world, calm and unclouded, cheerful, freed of longing, he has crossed over birth and old age. I say, when there is right mindfulness of anama or rupa which appears, without trying to focus on a particular object, there is also right concentration which arises at that moment because of the appropriate conditions and performs its function. When right understanding develops, it penetrates the arising and ceasing of the 5 khandhas, and eventually there will be the destruction of the asavas at the attainment of arahatship. 7.1.1 Questions. 1. Are ekagata and samadhi the same cetasika? 2. Can there be samadhi with a kusala citta? 3. What is the difference between samadhi in samatha and samadhi in vipassana? 4. If we try to concentrate on sound, is that the way to know sound as it is? Chapter 8 Vitality, J-Ivatindriya, life faculty or vitality, and manasic era, attention, are 2 other cetasikas among the 7 universals which arise with every citta. As regards J-Ivatindriya, 1. This cetasika sustains the life of the citta and cetasikas it accompanies. According to the Athas Alani, Part 4, Chapter 1, 123, 124, 2. The characteristic of J-Ivatindriya is ceaseless watching. Its function is to maintain the life of the accompanying dhammas, its manifestation the establishment of them, and the proximate cause are the Dhammas which have to be sustained. The function of Jivitindriya is to maintain the life of Citta and its accompanying Cetasikas. It keeps them going until they fall away. Since Jivitindriya arises and falls away together with the Citta, it performs its function only for a very short while. Each moment of Citta consists actually of 3 extremely short periods: the arising moment, upadakon. A. The moment of its presence, or static moment, tit.t.hi-kon.a, the dissolution moment, bon-ga-kon.a. Jivitindriya arises with the Citta at the arising moment and it maintains the life of Citta and the accompanying Cetasikas, but it cannot make them stay beyond the dissolution moment. Then Jivitindriya has to fall away together with the Citta and the accompanying Cetasikas. The Athas Alani states concerning Jivitindriya. It watches over those states, the accompanying Dhammas, only in the moment of their and its existence, as water over lotuses, etc. And although it watches over them, arisen as its own property, as a nurse over the infant, life goes on only by being bound up with these states, accompanying Dhammas, that have gone on, as the pilot on the boat. Beyond the dissolution moment it does not go on, owing to the non-being both of itself and of the states which should have been kept going. At the dissolution moment it does not maintain them, owing to its own destruction, as the spent oil in the wick cannot maintain the flame of the lamp. Its effective power is as its duration. Citta and Cetasikas cannot arise without Jivitindriya which maintains their lives, and Jivitindriya cannot arise without Citta and the accompanying Cetasikas. When, for example, seeing arises, Jivitindriya must accompany seeing. Seeing needs Jivitindriya in order to subsist during the very short period of its life. When seeing falls away, Jivitindriya also falls away. Then another Citta arises, and this Citta is accompanied by another Jivitindriya which sustains Citta and the accompanying Cetasikas during that very short moment of their existence. Jivitindriya has to arise with every Citta in order to vitalize Citta and its accompanying Cetasikas. The Cetasika Jivitindriya which vitalizes the accompanying Nama Dhammas is Nama. There is also Jivitindriya which is Rupa.3. Rupa Jivitindriya is a kind of Rupa produced by Kama, and it maintains the life of the other Rupa it arises together with. Rupa arise and fall away in groups, some of which are produced by Kama, some by Citta, some by nutrition and some by temperature. Jivitindriya is part of only the groups or Rupa which are produced by Kama. It maintains the life of the Rupa it accompanies, and then it falls away together with them. We used to take life for something which lasts. We cling to life and we take it for mine and self. However, there is no physical life nor mental life which lasts. Life faculty is Sankhara Dhamma, conditioned Dhamma, which does not stay and which is not self. The study of the reality of Jivitindriya can remind us that life lasts only for a moment and then falls away to be succeeded by a next moment. 8.2 Attention, Manasakara, attention, is another Cetasika among the universals which arises with every Citta point for the Athas Alani. Part IV, Chapter 1, 133, which defines Manasakara in the same wording as the Visuddhimagga, 14, 152, states concerning the Cetasika which is Manasakara. It has the characteristic of driving associated states towards the object, the function of joining, yoking, associated states to the object, the manifestation of facing the object. It is included in the Sankhara Khanda, and should be regarded as the charioteer of associated states because it regulates the object. The 14, 152, adds that the proximate cause of Manasakara is an object, the Cetasika manasic era, which can be translated as attention, is the controller of the object, because it turns the citta towards the object. However, also at the moments we are, as we call it in conventional language, distracted, and we think that we are without attention, there is still manasic era with the citta, since it accompanies every citta. Also, when there is mohamula citta accompanied by udhaka, restlessness, citta cognizes an object, manasic era accompanies the citta and joins citta and the other cetasikas to that object. Every citta needs manasic era in order to cognize an object. There is citta at this moment, and thus there must also be manasic era. Manasic era is different from phassa, which contacts the object so that citta can experience it, and it is different from ekagate cetasika, which focuses on one object. Manasic era has its own task while it assists the citta in cognizing the object. Manasic era has attention to whatever object presents itself through one of the 6 doors, and it joins citta and the accompanying cetasikas to that object. Manasika Ra is different according as it arises with different types of citta. When, for example, seeing arises, it is accompanied by manasic era, which joins seeing and the accompanying cetasikas to visible object. Seeing is vipaka, and thus manasic era is also vipaka. Shortly after the seeing there can be attention to the shape and form of something, and then the object is not visible object but a concept. At that moment there is another type of citta accompanied by another manasic era. At each moment manasic era is different. When there is lobamula citta, a kusala citta rooted in attachment, manasic era which accompanies lobamula citta is also a kusala. When there is kusala citta, the manasic era which accompanies the kusala citta is also kusala. When manasic era accompanies a citta which cultivates samatha, it joins citta and the other cetasikas to the meditation subject, such as a corpse or the Buddha's virtues. When the citta is rupavakara kusala citta, the accompanying manasic era is also rupavakara. It is different from manasic era, which is kmavakara, belonging to the sense sphere. Rupavakara citta experiences the meditation subject with absorption, and the accompanying manasic era joins citta and the accompanying cetasikas to that object. The manasic era which accompanies a rupavakara citta is still more tranquil and more refined than the manasic era which accompanies rupavakara citta. When manasic era accompanies the citta which develops vipas, san-a, right understanding of nama and rupa, there is attention towards the nama or rupa, which is the object of mindfulness at that moment. Manasic era assists the citta and joins it to that nama or rupa. When manasic era accompanies lokuttara citta, manasic era is also lokuttara, and it joins citta and the accompanying cetasikas to the object which is nibbana. We are likely to have a concept of self which has attention to this or that object, but attention, manasic era, is a conditioned Dhamma. It is conditioned by the citta and the cetasikas it accompanies. It arises and falls away together with them. At each moment there is a different citta and thus also a different manasic era. The 7 universals have each their own specific characteristic, function, manifestation and proximate cause, and they have different qualities as they arise with cittas of different jatis and of different planes of consciousness. Summarizing the 7 universals, they are phassa, contact, vedana, feeling, san-na, remembrance, citta-na, volition, ekagata, concentration or one-pointedness, j-ivatindriya, life faculty, manasic era, attention. All the universals arise with every citta and they share the same object with the citta. They are all of the same jati as the citta they accompany and of the same plane or consciousness. In the planes of existence where there are both nama and rupa, cetasikas arise at the same base, vathu, as the citta they accompany, and thus, they may arise at the eye base, ear base, nose base, tongue base, body base or heart base, Cetasikas never arise by themselves, they always accompany Citta and other Cetasikas. Therefore, when we study Cetasikas, we should also study the different Cittas they accompany. There are other Cetasikas besides the universals, which can arise with the Citta, but there have to be at least the 7 universals with every Citta. There are 10 types of Cittas which are accompanied only by the universals, not by other Cetasikas. These are the 5 pairs, dvi pan kavan enen.a, which are seeing consciousness, hearing consciousness, smelling consciousness, tasting consciousness, and body consciousness. These Cittas are ahatuka, rootless, vipaka Cittas, which can be either kusala vipaka or akusala vipaka, and therefore, they are 5 pairs. When seeing consciousness arises, each of the universals, which accompanies it, performs its own function. Phassa, which accompanies seeing consciousness, is eye contact, kakusam phassa. It contacts visible object. When there is eye contact, there is the coinciding of eye base, visible object, and seeing consciousness. Vedana, which is in this case indifferent feeling, experiences the taste of visible object. San-na marks and remembers visible object. Citta coordinates the tasks of the accompanying Dhammas. Since seeing consciousness is vipaka Citta, Citta merely coordinates, it does not will kusala or akusala. Ekagat performs its function of focusing on visible object, it does not focus on any other object. Ivitindriya sustains Citta and the accompanying Cetasikas until they fall away. Manasic era drives Citta and the accompanying Cetasikas towards visible object. Seeing consciousness needs the accompanying universals in order to cognize visible object. It could not arise and cognize its object without the assistance of the accompanying Cetasikas. As we have seen, only the dvi pan kavan enen, as are not accompanied by other Cetasikas besides the universals. All the other Cittas which arise in the sense door process and in the mind door process, and also the Pat-Dadi Sandhi Citta, rebirth consciousness, the Bhavanga Citta, life continuum, and the Kuti Citta, dying consciousness, are accompanied by other Cetasikas besides the universals. The universals have different qualities as they arise with different Cittas. For example, when Kusala Citta arises, all the accompanying Cetasikas, the universals included, are Kusala as well. Vedana, feeling, which accompanies Kusala Citta, can be pleasant feeling or indifferent feeling. Citta, volition, which accompanies Kusala Citta, has a double function, it coordinates the tasks of the accompanying Dhammas and it wills Kusala. If it motivates wholesome deeds, it is capable of producing the appropriate result when it is the right time for it. Thus, Kusala Citta is different from Citta which accompanies Vipaka Citta. When the Citta is akusala, all the accompanying Cetasikas are akusala as well. Vedana, which accompanies akusala Citta, can be pleasant feeling, in the case of Lobhamula Citta, unpleasant feeling, in the case of Dosamula Citta, or indifferent feeling, in the case of Lobhamula Citta and Mohamula Citta. As regards Citta, which accompanies akusala Citta, this has a double function, it coordinates the accompanying Dhammas on the object and it wills akusala. If it motivates unwholesome deeds, it is capable of producing the appropriate result when it is the right time. Ekagat concentration or one-pointedness, which accompanies akusala Citta, is different from Ekagat which accompanies Kusala Citta. Thus we see that mental phenomena which arise together condition one another. If we have more understanding of the many different conditions for the phenomena which arise, it will help us to see them as elements, not as a person, a self. 8.2.1 Questions. 1. Does manasic era, attention, arise when we are sound asleep? 2. Can manasic era be lokuttara? 3. Do Namaj Ivitindriya and Rupaj Ivitindriya have different functions? 4. Which types of citta are accompanied only by the 7 universals, and not by other Cetasikas? 5. Each of the universals has its specific characteristic, function, manifestation, and proximate cause. Why can each one of them still have different qualities at different moments? 6. Through how many doors can the universals experience an object? 7. Can the universals experience a concept? 8. When the citta is a kusala citta, it is accompanied by a kusala Cetasikas. Are the accompanying universals a kusala as well?